Welcome everybody into episode one of the Inside Drift. Today, I am Spencer Sasick, and I'm joined by
Matthew Young, more commonly known as Bick Bork.
And Riley Carroll, more commonly known as Hydration.
and unfortunately today, Nate Schultz, known as Nate SM or Schultz, he cannot join us today. He was here for the practice pod, but unfortunately he got cut and he's gone. Never see him again. Well, hopefully we will. He just wasn't able to make these first two episodes. Anyways, Riley, do you want to tell us more about yourselves real quick before we get into episode one?
Yeah, definitely. But first, I just want to I want to put some condolences for Nate. We had some wars today, and not only did he get cut from the pod,
Dude,
he got cut from being our bagger. Yeah, he got cut from being our bagger.
Yep.
I had to take over for him.
Dude, that was a legacy performance.
Was tough.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
thank
snatched
you.
his
Thank
chain.
He actually rolled Delhi match one. That was tough. I don't know how we even won one of those two, but
Guys, I'm responsible for 50% of BT's wins this year. I'm just saying. Anyway,
that's what we like to see. Anyways,
yeah,
rough
we like to
season.
see.
We're gonna get off. We're gonna get off of that. This is mostly gonna be a TT pod, so we don't need to get into that. If we want to do an
I
online
thought this was
episode,
battle mode.
Battle mode? Oh, battle mode would be tough.
The outside drift.
We gotta start a battle mode league. Battle mode
Rival podcast.
TNS
Yeah.
Troll No Star Battle Pod. So you just gotta shroom into everybody's balloons.
Anyway.
That would be really funny. So yeah, tell them a little bit about yourself. for those
Yeah,
who
I'll
might
tell you
not
guys a little
know.
bit about myself. So I'm Hydration. I've been playing the game pretty much my whole life, but I've been involved in the community for the last probably 6 years. I'm mostly known for what I do on the players page.
And Grumble
I am
Volcano
a-
Glitch Lab.
Oh,
Don't forget
of course.
that.
I'm getting there. But yeah, I'm a inactive players page time updater, a one-time news update poster, and I'm also ranked within the top 35 on the Blue Chart players page, the real ranking, as they say. I used to hold worldwide tops on RDH, regs on GV, glitch, and I am known for being washed on the Grumble Volcano glitch flap. The
You
best
sell
category in
yourself
the game.
short. I think you might still be top 30.
Still
might.
top 30.
I think if I updated my times, maybe. Yeah, Big Book.
Yeah.
Do you want to go next? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Matt.
Got
sure,
this Matt.
Be
So
formal.
I'm Matt. Most of you know me by Bick Bork. I'm known as the RMC guy. Got RMC record recently.
Thought that was Caden.
I've been, Caden's on the come up. I'm watching out for him.
He
He's
is on the
scaring
come
me a
up.
bit.
There's levels.
I think
to
he'll
this.
he'll get it. It will be his one day. But for now, it's mine. And so I've been playing the game. I mean, of course, I played it a bit as a kid and came back to it in late 2018. So almost 8 years ago now that I've been an active TTer, and for a couple of years was kind of just lurking around like YouTube and Twitch chats before really formally joining the community in early 2020. So about 6.5 years ago. May also know me for creating the public TT server, even though I don't really do much of running it anymore. I want to thank all the mods for that. They make my job easy. And recently I've also taken up doing some more content creation around the game, reviving the World Record Review series and doing some other videos to highlight some things that I think are cool. So yeah.
Cool. And I'm Spencer. I'm not gonna try to fake it like Riley. I'm a bum too. I have regs on DKJP, and more notably, I'm BT founder with Alex, who doesn't really. He kind of plays the game. He won't play the game for a couple months, then he'll play 8 Mogies a day or something. But yeah, founded that out of Marv's server. Like both these guys, I played this game as a kid and didn't come back. For me, a little bit in 2019, I first downloaded CGP, dabbled a little bit, and then in 2020, I kind of found the community. And all of us, the original core of BT, we found Marv's server, his streams, and that's kind of how that got all born. But yeah, no. I'm a failed war player. I do my best, but I'm still hard struck mid-low div.
We are hard
It's
stuck
what it
mid-div.
is. I have fun with it, but no, I'm not going to pretend I'm very good. And then, yeah, TTs. I just have a timesheet that I aim by playing mock bike, but my best time is just regs on Parkway. And with that, we should bring to you the main topic of our first episode, which we are here to rank the top 20 greatest T-tiers of all time. So keyword is greatest. We're not trying to rank the current best 20. We're trying to recognize players by their all-time accomplishments and stuff. So, Matt, do you want to get into the criteria here?
Yeah, so when it comes to, a player's all-time legacy, the most important thing to mention is that things are largely relative to the era you played in. As Spencer said, this is not a current list. In this game, world records are king. I know that flaps were recently added to the world record page, but for the longest time, they weren't really considered to be world records. So on this list, we will be really only talking about 3-lap records. But other accomplishments in this game do carry a lot of weight as well. Standout accomplishments on the players page, players having a great timesheet overall. And when making our list, we also have to parse, a player's peak versus their longevity. And yeah, anything else?
Yeah, no, something for me that I really highly value is not peak in general, but specifically peaking as the best player in the world. Only a handful of players have been able to hold that title over these 18 years. I do think that is very impressive. But obviously, even deciding if someone peaked as best in the world. Recently, it's been obvious with Logan and Luke. But for much of the game's history, it's been really, really competitive, and that's something that's going to be for us to decide, and it's not going to be an easy task. But yeah, as Matt said, world records aren't everything. There are other means of skill expression and certain things that add to players' legacies that are simply inseparable from them. But we really will be using world records. That's kind of the pinnacle of the game. And this is also a game of track specialists, very separate from kind of the previous games in MKW. You can't just be good at the game and expect to have the 5th best time on every track. Every track is so different and unique. A lot more goes into learning each track rather than just general mechanics that'll give you a similar time across the board like in some of the previous games. So, and then yeah, the one last thing I'd add is for active players, we just have to assume that we're not projecting with that. We'll just assume as if they ended their careers right now, whatever times they have right now, that's where they stand. Do you have anything else to add, Riley?
Nothing really. I think for me, flaps are the main determinant. I like to hand calculate everyone's flap AF on the players page. And
you got a
that's
sheet for
purely
that?
how I. Oh yeah. I'll share it at some point.
Okay.
But yeah, that's purely how I rank players.
Wow.
But no,
Man,
yeah.
I love flaps. He's got to get that shirt up here.
Indeed.
I do. I'm not quite at Arvo's level, with that, with his love for flaps, but hopefully a close second.
But yeah, if we have time at the end, we'll get into Nate's lists. I just have his, and this episode we will specifically be going through 20 to 11. Episode 2 we will cover the top 10. Should have said that before. I had Nate's 20 to 11 because he wasn't going to be able to be here. At the end, we might go through his if we have time. Otherwise, we're just going to ignore it for now because he's not going to be able to defend himself. And I say that because I saw his list and I quite frankly think he's insane. But nonetheless, hopefully that means it'll be a good episode. But yeah, we might touch on that towards the end. So and before we get into the top 20, we need to do some honorable mentions because there were a lot of guys that just barely didn't make the cut or even didn't have arguments necessarily to make the top 20, but still we feel should be recognized. So Matt, do you have anybody you want to start off with?
Yeah, so I do have some honorable mentions that I want to name. And before we get into them, I just want to say that this is a very, very, very tough list to crack. These are the greatest players in the history of the game. This is an extremely high bar, and it might come off as slandering some of these players when we're comparing them, but we have immense respect for all the guys that we're mentioning in this video. These are the greatest to ever do it. It's just at this point, it's all the minutia that you really have to pick at to differentiate them. So,
yeah, and one more thing. Often, like whenever we have one guy over another, it's just one guy we just think is better than the other. We don't really think the other guy is bad. So yeah, get into it. Who's your first honorable mention?
Yeah, so the first guy I wanted to mention as an honorable mention for my list is Infy. Do either of you guys have him as a top 20 player?
I had him in the late 20s, so yeah, he'd be an honorable mention for me.
Okay.
Or what about you, Riley?
Yeah.
I have the highest aura player of all time, Nobuo, as my honorable mention.
Or no, what about you? Do you have Infy?
Oh no, I don't.
Okay. Yeah, no. We'll have Big Mark talk about Infy. That's all I wanted.
Okay, yeah. I mean, what's there to say about Infy? This guy is maybe the most naturally gifted player when it comes to tech in the history of the game. The stuff he can do when it comes to low tricks is truly, truly special. His ability to implement new strats. This guy was the king of DDR for the longest time. I mean, he reigned on that track for years and years. He also implemented many new strats on Coconut Mall no glitch, taking the time down to a low 156. He had 17 world records in his day, a total duration of a little over 2,700 days. And I mean, his play, especially on DDR, still holds up very, very well, even a decade after his runs were set.
For sure. I think his run from 2014, the 147, I believe it was 498, is one of the. I'd have to look at everything, but I would totally believe it if someone wanted to tell me it was like a top 20 world record ever set. It was just incredibly strong for the time. And honestly, like, in terms of just like raw DDR, if you try to account for extra streamlesses and stuff, that still might be in the top 10. Not even having to go to his current
surely.
PR. But
surely
it is. I would have loved for him to come back and try to play it with the new strats. Obviously didn't happen, but it's like he maintained his spot on the worldwide top 10 when guys were playing a completely different game than he was for a really long time. And what he did to CM was also pretty incredible. I wasn't around for that firsthand, but he completely changed how the track was played. It had gotten stale, and then some players like Ace and Breakson took up the mantle after him to keep pushing it, but he really did a lot there. And then a ton of duration, 17 records. Huge respect to his legacy.
It's hard to understate, what Infy did for DDR. Not necessarily in terms of, in terms of like new strats or anything like that, although I'm sure he implemented one or two new things. But just the way he drove the track, I think what we were kind of getting at is that I'm not sure if it's even been matched yet. It may have been with, Logan's time, but where he did, to get that 147, 307 with the strats he used showed incredible driving, and if you compare that run to the strats he used today, it's a completely different track. It looks like it's pretty incredible, how long that would have stood if there weren't any new strats added.
I think Luke has a chance just because Luke is such an amazing driver. I think Luke could have maybe pushed for it without the Shroomless. But Luke was just a much better player than Infy. Infy was just a better DDR player. I do think since then, Logan and Nugget too have probably matched his level of driving. But outside of those three guys, and two of them which are, okay, spoiler alert, they're just the consensus top two players of all time, the top two best players right now, Luke and Logan. That's kind of, everybody's gonna give them their credit there.
Dude, spoilers, man.
But yeah, no. Other than those, I think the only guy who's actually caught up to the level of driving he was at since then is Nugget. Outside of those two, so yeah, no, it is it's incredibly crazy. And I know Matt has talked about this before, but if you look at like how he drove CM, it's kind of crazy he was even able to get records even with the tech that he has. Like, he was just a raw track specialist. He was so good with tech that he could overcome his own driving limitations. But even with DDR, like, he just found a way to just drive it, and he was amazing at that too. So even if his like general driving wasn't up to the par of other like record level players at the time. All right, do you want to get into a second honorable mention, Matt?
Sure.
And if you miss anybody, I'll go into them. And I don't think Riley, you mentioned that you don't have a list of these guys, so I'll just
I got
go.
one.
You got one, but he's going to be on our list. He's at least on my list. So
I'm not going to share who it is yet, but I have
already
one.
done that.
Shut up.
Matt.
Yeah, so another honorable mention I had that just barely didn't make the list was Zeke. Do either of you guys have him on the list?
No. He's in my 20 to 25 range. I have him very. I'll go into a next honorable mention. I think he's really close to another guy that barely missed the cut.
Yeah, I think when you talk about Zeke, it's a similar discussion to what it is with Infi. This guy had 19 records, about a 3,600 day total duration, and I mean, he was the king of Bowser's Castle no glitch for the longest time. He cut the record down by over a second. First 220, had a couple super notable records with his 226.72 and his 220.001, just barely missing out on the next sub. He also had some records on Toad's Factory no glitch and Coconut Mall no glitch way back in the day. And outside of that, he's very good on RBC, very good on RDS, one of the fastest raw drivers in the game's history, although he does lack some of the consistency at that level. But yeah, I mean, he's been around through so many eras. It's a bit sad that, he seems to have been gone for the last couple of years. I think if he came back, he could definitely still contend on BC Wii. Just an incredible player for
sure.
such a long time.
Yeah, I recently, when I was getting the information for this list, I checked his Chad soft because I was really curious, I couldn't remember what was the last ghost that he had on there, if it was the last BC Wii or if there was something after that. And that day, like early 2023, or maybe it was like May, but he had the BC Wii record, and then he had an RMC time. But I just think it's such a shame that he wasn't able to get that sub. He stuck at 001. And I really don't think, I mean, nothing is more satisfying than getting a sub like that, but I don't think the fact that he didn't get the first 219 should really diminish from his legacy. In reality, the difference between 219.999 and his 001, it's so negligible. And yes, it wasn't the satisfying ending that I'm sure many of us hoped for, but he really did cut the track like a second and a half. He was truly the king back in the day. But also, one of the other things that I think separates him from other track specialists is he's set records on other tracks, as well as in multiple eras being top players on other tracks. He has set worldwide tops times through the late 2010s and early 2020s, in addition to in the mid 2010s, where he was able to set records on TF and CM, in addition to obviously setting worldwide tops on other tracks. So yeah, no, I think his versatility is a little underrated because, like Matt said, he just is an amazing raw driver. The consistency might not be there, but the speed is truly top end. And a guy that I had him really close to, I had him one spot below, was Vincent B, because I just think they both feel very similar to me. They're both track specialists, Vincent's not a track specialist. His record page would suggest that, but they've both set so many other worldwide tops times on other tracks. They played very similar eras of the games, and they've been similar types of players in terms of their output of what their times have been, hovering in the 4 to 6 times on worldwide tops for a lot of it. I think Vincent has a lot more now, but he's probably he was a more diverse player in his entire career than Zeke as well. But no, They're just two players that I thought looked very similar when I was making this list. So Vincent was another honorable mention for me. He was the guy I talked about. I guess I should have asked you, do either of you guys have Vincent on your list?
I do not.
I will refrain from talking because I do have him on
Oh,
the
okay.
list.
So no, I'm sorry. I should not have gone into that then. So he's on the list.
We'll talk about him a bit more later.
We'll get back to Barone later. Matt, anyone else you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, so I still have a few more guys that I want to shout out. Another one that, I mean, this guy, he has one of the most unique legacies in the game's history, and that's King Alex. I mean, when you think of like true versatility, this guy is the king. He had records on so many just odd
Hey, Vic
categories.
Yeah.
Hey, Victor.
Oh, yeah. Is
Hold
he
up.
on your list?
Yeah, he's on my list.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll talk about him later then.
Ooh, he was a guy that I was lower on just because I kind of liked what other people had done more than him. But I do believe his legacy should not be understated. I am happy that someone has him on the list, even if I was a little bit lower on him, having kind of my late 20s. But yeah.
We'll wax poetic about him later.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone else on your honorable mention, Spencer? Or?
A couple guys. So we did a practice pod with some of the guys in the 35 to 25 range that none of us had in our top 20s. So a couple standouts from that is I just want to highlight Nyake and Blake, two more elite track specialists. Obviously, both very different. Nyake's actually not even that much. They both had to persist against competition. Nyake's came across many different players through many different eras and strat changes, whereas Blake has really only struggled with Connor of recently, who might just be the tech goat. Incredible player, and he's been able to come out on top both times that Connor was able to reclaim. And then Nancy and Madson, a long time ago, those were not as big of hurdles for him as he got them within a couple weeks both times. But yeah, no, both of their persistence. I think Nyake has one of the most unique legacies in this game because of how much competition, especially early his category played, how much strat upheaval it went through, and his determination. He always managed to come back out on top, even when so many times it looked like he was done. I can't speak to when King Alex introduced the new entry on BitBike, which is the one time he did not reclaim because Quacker was introduced a couple months later. But beforehand, King Alex had beaten him a couple times way before then. He had also competition with other players. But when Jiren was able to beat him, it really felt like he was done. Yeah. Jiren had a streak of like 7 records, and he cut the record down a lot. Nyake finally gets it back, and then Jiren lays down an absolute haymaker. And it did take Nyake, I think, around 300 days to get it back, but he has gotten it back. He's held it ever since because it's just such an amazing run. So like he hasn't been necessarily the most dominant in the sense that like Demon or Blake or someone is dominant on a category where it feels like nobody or only one player can contend with them. But his persistence in always getting the world record back, I think, is incredible. So those were 2 guys I wanted to shout out.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you guys have anything else to add about either of them?
No, I think you really, encapsulated, the legacy of them, their track specialty, their ability to just persevere, when challenges come to face them, no matter how strong the player is. They just get back to grinding and get it back, and I think that's super commendable. Both of them still having the record today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like revisionist history. Ones. It's like inevitable that Nyake will have GV, but there were so many times where it wasn't so in the moment, and that's just what makes it so impressive that he's always been able to get it back. Do you have anyone else, Matt? I think I got 2 more guys.
Yeah, I've still got 2 more guys. I kind of expect them to be on at least one of your lists. So.
All right, if you expect them, then we can just get to them later. I'll go through really 2 guys really quickly. Do either of you guys have Vayu on your list?
I do.
I do not.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
Another guy I'm really happy that appears in the top 10. I think, or top 20. Sorry, he's definitely not in the top 10 in this list. I do think Vayu. I think people kind of forget about him, about how good he was in the early era of the game. But yeah, we'll talk about him later. And one last guy, I mean, he could be on the list. I don't really think he has much of an argument, but do either of you guys have Yaverian in the top 20?
I do not.
I do not.
I don't. I mean, I would have him outside of the top 30. Like, I don't really think the longevity just is so bad that I think it's a little bit disrespectful to some of the guys, like everybody above him. They've just been playing the game so much longer at a high level. But June 2028 is the most dominant month by any player or by any T tier in Mario Kart Wii history. Like, he went from like 2 to 10 records, like in an era where nobody else like held more than like 2 or 3 at a time, outside of I think the first couple days where there were a couple of players like 4 and 6. But it was just truly incredible what he was able to do, how he was actually able to stack world records and get more, even though other people were playing his categories and he couldn't defend them, as well as the track specialists of the time. So I don't even know how he did that. That was just a wild arc that he had, and it's a shame that he just disappeared after that, really, because he lost almost all of his world records within the next month. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight June 2028, which was a crazy run for him.
You heard it here first, folks. Javier on comeback, June 2028. Look out for it.
Dude, he's just up to 10 records. Absolutely.
I can guarantee this has not been the first and will not be the last time Spencer completely messes up a number in the in the tens place.
Oh,
this will happen
which number did I mess up?
You said 2028.
You said 2028.
Oh my gosh. 2000. I almost did it again. 2008. Oh my god. See, I'm just really bad at this. I don't know why. I've always been. The practice pod, I was locked in. I only messed up once at the end, but we're already cooked today. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to lock in.
Before we get into hydration stuff, I just want to say the names of my 2 last honorable mentions, just in case they're not on your lists.
Okay.
Do either of you guys have Brendan on the list?
Yes.
I do.
Okay, I expected that. And do either of you guys have Thomas Van Diers on the list?
I do not.
No.
Oh, wow, neither of you. Okay, so...
And Nate doesn't have his name either. I'm actually just lower on him than some of these other guys. So yeah.
Maybe I'm a little higher on him.
Which is actually interesting. So
yeah, Thomas was actually my first cut off the list.
Wow.
And I mean, what is there to say about this guy? 12 world records, not a ton for the guys that we'll be talking about today. Most of them being on glitch. But he did have a few very respectable ones with his 211-885 on Parkway. And as much as I consider this to be a pretty unserious category, this run in particular was very, very good for the time, which was his spiral skip run of a 209.531. Especially with the old shroom at the end. That's very, very good. He was the Players Page champion for about half a year from late 2012 to mid 2013. And I think what's notable about him is that he just kept competing for a super long time. He played pretty consistently through 2016, 2017, and his timesheet just kept getting better and better, and he was very, very close to being the champion at some points in there. I think he probably peaked as about a top 5 player, and I think his longevity and timesheet is maybe a little underrated because people see he was champ in 2012 and just assume that his stuff doesn't hold up today nearly as well as it does.
Yeah, he kind of comes at, a somewhat interesting time, where I think Totem was just better, and once Totem came along and was, and grinded more tracks, he just kind of took over. But I think how long Van Diers, stuck around in that, top 5 and even especially top 10. I mean, he was top 10 until maybe 5 years ago. Super impressive. I think he's still, at least on the blue charts, he's number 14 still, which is insanely impressive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My issue with him is I just thought the top end stuff from him was lacking. I mean, the original spiral skip records mean something to me because it was the main category at that point because the glitch hadn't been discovered. But for me, I'm kind of looking at like those two, the Parkway run that tied Yasha, and then I do think the second spiral skip record, the one that Matt mentioned, I do really respect that time. But yeah, for me, it was just he just didn't have that like top end elite time setting gear, but he was an incredibly consistent player and he was persistent over the years, which allowed him to modernize his timesheet and stay in the top 10 for AF categories for so long. So
Yeah.
obviously a very good player.
I completely agree. I mean, when you look at his timesheet, when you look at his world record page, he has 8 days of duration on no glitch categories.
Yeah.
You know, he held his 211.8 for 8 days.
Yeah.
Other than that, his world records are RDH glitch grinding. He was the first to implement it, and was able to grind that down. And then he had 2 spiral skip records before the glitch got found, which are definitely real world records in that sense, right? But yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough world when your best track happens to be Yasha's best track.
That's a fair point.
Nobody was beating him until he was retired. So
Yeah.
I think it's possibly might have been or he probably would have been outclassed by Luke just because of how amazing Luke is with driving. But he was truly better than anyone ever was at the old shortcut. He made something that made players bash their heads into the wall semi-consistent. So I don't know how he did it.
I will say his 211.8 is also a tied record with Yasha. It wasn't, a sole record.
It was tied and it got beat 8 days later. Yeah, it was it's a rough world.
That was a
Yasha's
3-year
world.
tie, by the way. It was
he
like
tied
3 years and 3
record
months,
and
then
just
beat it 8 days later.
got swatted aside 8 days later.
Unfortunate, but hey,
So-
it still shows up on the record page. So
For sure. There's one last minute change. My 20 and 21 spot. It's so tough. The
remember
other
that same
guy.
issue.
Yeah, the guy in my 21 spot you guys have on your list, so it's not even like it's not worth an honorable mention because we'll talk about him more later. But yeah,
Better choose now.
which one of you guys wants to get into your 20 first?
I can go first because I want to talk about my 21.
Yeah.
Okay.
My honorable mention that I mentioned earlier is Nobuo. Does anyone have him on the list?
Yes.
I do not.
Okay, I won't speak on it any further then. But yeah, so then in that case, I think we're done with honorable mentions.
Yes.
And I'll get into
Okay.
my number 20.
I'll talk about my last honorable mention when you guys bring him up, or I'll just tell you guys who it is. But yeah, once you guys bring him up. So yeah, who you got at 20?
So my number 20 is Demon. And this was a last minute addition for me. And the reason why is I think in general I don't value like one track specialists that high. We found out when we did our ranking for our practice episode, I was very low on Niyaki and Blake. And while I completely respect their dominance on a track, I didn't quite see it as impressive as those who were able to be the best at multiple tracks at a time, right? But I think Demon kind of stands in his own category in terms of being a track specialist. He's set 42 world records, and I don't remember exactly how many of them. I want to say it's 40 records were on MT No Glitch or Glitch, right?
I think so.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry,
Wait, hold
39.
up.
39 or
it's
40.
39.
Yeah,
It's
it
19
was 39.
no shortcut,
3 of them
20
were-
shortcut. Although it might
Okay.
be 21 shortcut because he just set the one. I don't know if I did my
Yeah.
work before or after that one.
I think
Yeah.
it's 20 now.
Okay, it's 20
Yeah.
now. Okay.
Yeah, he had 3 RMC records, including getting the 130 for the first time, which is a huge accomplishment, and a big sub to hit, right? But what he's known for is MT. He's the MT king. Starting off with the glitch category, he brought that track down from a 210 in the early days of the glitch, and took that the whole way down to a 200 and then a 159. And then, eventually his legendary 157, 1-for-3 time, which honestly, I think there's a chance that could still be the record today if he had left it. I think someone would eventually grind it and beaten it if he hadn't. But that time, the driving in it is super impressive. And then he took, no shortcut, taking it from a 216 down to a 213. which is the record by, I want to say, over a second and a half. Sorry, just under a second. I forgot Flair got that big 2:14.0. But
Yeah.
unprecedentedly, great at this track. Understands the turn skip, every turn just so much better than any other player. And then you know, once the Benny Strat got founded, he took that over too. He set now, I believe, 4 records on that category, and got it at 135, and it's now down to 131. But yeah, just so much dominance on one track, and that's not even counting his flap dominance, right? But yeah,
Okay. All I'm gonna say is, you see all that, like, how do you got that resume at number 20, man? He was my
Yeah.
first cut from the top 10. I have him at 11.
interesting.
Wow.
Wow.
Where do
What
you
do you have
have
in
him
that
at?
bookwork?
I've got him in the middle at number 15.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I just have low value for someone who only did it on 2 tracks. And he did on one of the tracks he did for very little, right? He wasn't dominant there. But, I can respect, putting so much effort into one track and truly being like separating yourself, and that's why he makes the list. But I don't think, he wasn't able he's a one trick pony, you know.
but he's
Sorry, or
so
a
He's so
one track
good.
pony, I
he's
guess.
so good at it, it doesn't matter. And he's so good at it. Well, also, I think you're cutting him a little bit short on the one track wonder thing. It is 3 distinct categories. Well, 1 for 3 was a little bit different. 1 for 3 was definitely an extension of No Glitch. So back then you have his run on RMC, obviously tough competing with Prime Fox. Wasn't able to win that one, but that also wasn't his main focus. You have he's been dominating Treeway No Glitch. I think starting in 2013 is when he got his first record.
Yeah, I
But then
think so.
after, yeah, May 2013. So after that, he cuts it by only a little bit before Kisaragi comes around, is able to beat him, and he's like, he definitely could have gotten the record. I think this is the one biggest blemish on his legacy, is just that he didn't beat Kisaragi back no glitch or no turn skip before implementing the turn skip. But once the turn skip was fair game, it was over. Nobody in between when he got his initial gap over the rest of the worldwide top 10 to now, there's nobody else who anyone has ever taken seriously that people think could set the world record today. Like, that is just how dominant Demon has been on no shortcut. And then I'm just lower on glitches in general. I'm sure we all are, but I think what he was doing on the glitch side of MT, it's just a completely different track. But and I think it's very cool that he's been able to adapt to the Benny change, and ultimately he learned clip after first not learning the clip when the category was at a 2 for 3. He never really
Yeah.
contended, but just through Maple Treeway and his no shortcut duration there is 4.6k. That stacks up to a lot of other players in the early like teens range on its own, and that's not even including the rest of his duration. I don't know. I just have so much respect for the level of dominance he's had on Treeway, and I don't know. I really value someone just making a track their own, and for the amount of time that he's done that for, his longevity is amazing, and that's why I have him at 11. But I can understand why you would have some of these more well-rounded players above him. I think 20 is a little bit low, but yeah, do you have anything else to add, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is just by far the best track specialist this game has ever seen. Like you said, the dominance on no glitch is incredible, and also the innovation he had on it, from implementing Task Jack to the wheelie wiggler to the wheelie U-turn and then to turn skip. And I'm sure it's going to go even further one day.
Well, now you got the wheelie down the middle F3.
Yeah, I think Carter implemented that first though on the
Well,
flap
but
side.
he implemented snow glitch though, or he will. I guess nobody's
he
really
will.
implemented to no glitch, but he will be going for that in all of his attempts for sure now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this guy, something that's super standout is he has an over 8,000 total day record duration, which, we'll get to talking about a lot of players here. That is a very, very high number. And to do almost all of that on one track, I mean, he's had a few hundred days on RMC, but this guy's just the GOAT, man, when it comes to MT. It's hard to name a single thing on the track that he might not be the best at when it comes to both categories. Maybe Dez is still better at the Benny itself, but Demon's the best at the clip. He's probably the best at the low cannon. He's the best at all the driving on the track. What's there to say about the guy? He's just
and then go over
so far ahead.
No contest everywhere on the track.
Yeah.
And that was one point that I completely glossed over. But the innovation, I think, is also truly superb in terms of, the track, everything modern that's done on the track was Demon's implementation. It makes sense. He was on top for so long. So it makes sense that he is the guy to be implementing these stuffs to push his run further and stuff. But yeah.
Something to note also is his incredible 157, which is a truly legendary record, only lasted 150 days because of the clip being implemented soon after. If that wasn't implemented, that record would be easily a 1,000 plus day record if Demon let it stand. I don't think it would still be the record today. I think he would have chopped it down some more, but that run's duration was definitely cut short by the implementation of the one shroom.
For sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to, how you value a player. I have a ton of respect for what, Demon has done on that track, and I completely agree that it's the greatest, track specialist. He's the greatest track specialist in history. I just don't value it as high as, those who were able to do on multiple tracks, right? And I think that's what it comes down to.
The longevity peak argument is a big one, but the track specialist versus guys who were so much more well-rounded, that's going to be that's what we're just going to have to parse through in terms of what we value the most. And we already see some discrepancy there. I'm not sure how much we'll see later because he is the greatest track specialist in this game. I don't know, going through all the other guys in my list, I don't really think of any of them as pure track specialists.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
no, it'll be interesting to see what we got.
Yeah. Moving on, what do you guys have at your 20s?
Yeah, who you got, Matt, at your 20 spot?
So in my 20 spot, and I know Spencer will appreciate this, I have Axel. Do either of you guys have him on his list?
That was my last minute addition. I got him in my 20 spot.
Oh wow.
I had him lower, and then I was one, I had to put my guy in here, but two, I really do think I was actually underrating some parts of his resume going into it. So yeah, no, I have Axel in my 20 spot now as well.
Do you want to kick off the discussion on him, or do you want?
Nah, you got it. Lay down the case.
Okay, so Axel, man, 14 world records, 7 no glitch, 7 glitch. But it's very important to note the glitch records he set were not bad glitch records.
These are driving base glitch records.
Yeah, and very, very good ones at that. He had about a 3,400 day total duration. And when you look at his record page, it is just standout record after standout record. Most of his records were very, very high quality, especially for the time. First 52 on GV2, that lasted about a year and a half. 51.8 on the glitch category, that also lasted about a year and a half. 129.1 on Daisy Circuit, lasted for almost 500 days. BC Glitch, 210.5, that lasted almost 650. Just very, very good records. Also at the time, he had a really, really good timesheet overall. He peaked at 4 world records concurrently and was maybe the best player in the world at his peak. Definitely top 3. there's not much to hold against him other than that he doesn't have the best longevity and doesn't have the best world record volume. But the stuff that he did set was truly incredible.
Yeah, obviously the stuff on his record page, very easy to see. The timesheet though too, like I don't have it up in front of me, but it like he really was a well-rounded player in terms of the times that he was setting. It would be interesting for a lot of these players to really give them true credit, see how many times these guys had on worldwide tops at the time, even though worldwide tops are so much more important now than they were back then. Wouldn't have been as competitive either because of the lack of people caring as much. But yeah, no, he was such a well-rounded player in that regard, but he had really high peaks when he wanted to push for elite times on tracks, on particularly the three categories, or 3 tracks, 4 categories that he got record on, and does really just have a sneaky best in the world case with the 4 concurrent records on top of a very strong timesheet. He did them both. His peak was in 2013, which is a more dead area of the game, but it's still a lot more competitive than the era that Fox dominated, for example. For me, that's not a huge deal. There's not really a single era of the game that I'm docking at all. I'm just kind of giving bonus points to the really early eras. This isn't that for me. I think the players who dominated 08 and 09 into 010, like there was just so much competition. There was a reason why nobody really dominated. But yeah, Axel setting legacy times on both Ghost Valley categories, a nearly 2-year record on BC Wii, and really took Daisy Circuit down and held it until Fox got the sub. So, again, the player who I have at 21, I'm sure will appear in your guys' lists, but it was really tough to, it was a tough cut, for sure, in terms of both of these guys' legacies. I really do think they're both really good players. So,
Riley,
yeah.
you
Riley,
said you had him
got
off
it
the list?
19.
I
yeah.
do not have Axel.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll talk about Axel. I don't have him on my top list. I just don't think he has a lot of quality. I just don't think he necessarily has the quantity, right? And you look at him, and not more than just his record count. Only 4 unique categories. 2 of them being GV2, which are very highly correlated, right? Although there are very high quality records, there's a high correlation there. It's not like Demon on his his glitch versus no glitch.
First 3.
BC Wii, I don't value BC Wii as high until you get really into the. I think early days it wasn't that strong, at least until you get into the Fox and Blaze era, especially Blaze, really pushing that track down. But I think for the time in 2012, I don't know if that's more of like a it was just through the dead era of 2013, 2014 until Fox hit it that it was weak. It didn't progress like the other categories did. But I think Axel's timesheet in general is pretty solid. He has some really good times, that still hold up a little bit today. But yeah, I think he's a very solid player. I just didn't think he quite had the quantity to make it on this list.
I think you're underrating his BCW just a little bit. The early days of the category, obviously people are figuring out how to do it, so it's a little bit scuffed. It ends on Chaos's 2011-6 on Bowser Bike that lasted forever. And then, again, I'm not around for it. I don't know the lore behind it, but some Japanese players figured out how to actually do like the hop glitch. And then all of a sudden it became a really hard shortcut to something that I'm sure they weren't making it this consistently, but you can make it like 90+% of the time now. So it gets cut by 0.7 in just a few months. And then Axel lands that haymaker a few months after that. And I don't think it really isn't until Blaze optimized the track, in my opinion, that it really, really gets up to standard. But I do think Axel's run is a lot closer to, and I do think it was up to standard at the time, much more so than even Fox was 4 years later. I don't think those records were as strong relative to area as Axel's was, even including the 209 that he set with my stuff.
That's fair.
But yeah, you are right. The correlation between both GV2 categories, I just think that some of the other times that he had on his timesheet are pretty impressive. Like, we're giving credit to other guys for being PP champions and stuff, and he obviously wasn't at that level. But I mean, if we're going to give other people credit for their timesheet relative to era, he certainly had a solid timesheet relative to era. So, Riley, who do you got in your 19 spot?
Well, speaking of PP champ, I have Logan. No, I'm kidding. I have Bubbles, or David McPartland, as my 19.
Wow.
Where do you guys have him? And then I'll get into my reasoning.
Quite frankly, I didn't really consider him.
Yeah, I had him way off.
Yeah, I don't even know if he cracks the top 40 for me. There are just other guys from the early area of the game that I value higher than Bubbles, but lay out the case.
That's fair. I think I'm definitely a little bit higher on the early players than you guys are.
I think we might just be higher on different early players, but we'll see.
That's fair. So Bubbles, set 43 world records, 9 uniques. Over, a lot of, later 2008 records. He set his first record in July, and then kind of set records throughout, 2008 and then 2009 into like early 2010 is kind of where, he ended off. But so Bubbles was kind of in competition with Nick, and then a little bit Alvin at the beginning, for Players Page Champ, where, it's kind of a back and forth between them before Enmead eventually took over. But I think his mix of his Players Page abilities mixed with his world record tally and just being able to do it on multiple different tracks, multiple different categories, I think he had a mix of quantity and quality. Well, I don't think his quality was as high as someone like Axel. I think he had a ton more quantity to be able to back it up, even if it was an easier era. 25 of his records were post 2008. But yeah, that's kind of what I have as my thoughts for Bubbles.
Yeah, so I think the reason that I'm lower on him, like you said, he has really good record quantity. He was the Players Page champion, which you do have to value, but I just didn't think he was as good as a lot of the other players of that, 08, 09 type of time period. And I think part of the main reason for that was his total duration wasn't very long. He wasn't often a guy who was really tallying up records, which in that time period wasn't a big thing, but I think other guys did it better, and I just don't think his record quality was generally high. I think it's a particularly low record quality that he had in general. And so that's what gives me a tough time getting him higher up on my list. He just doesn't really have any times that stand out to me very much.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. I look at someone like Vayu and someone like Bubbles who played in a very similar era, and while Vayu didn't have the all-around timesheet dominance that Bubbles did competing with the very top, I value the quality of Vayu's records so much more. And I think having your elite times that stand out is a lot more important than being a well-rounded player who does get to the summit. But again, there is a reason why he only has just over 1,000 days of duration on 43 total records. His longest one was, he doesn't have 1,000 days of duration. He has a early era 2009 BC3 no shortcut record, so that's a little bit tough. And then his next longest record is a BC3 shortcut record, but in my opinion, in 2009, the track hadn't undergone some of the revolution where it would be a year or two later. I think, the record was down by almost an entire second a year and a half later. And that just kind of is one example of speaking to kind of the record quality of some of these runs. And I totally agree with Matt there. And for those reasons, I just didn't really consider him for this list. But he was for sure one of the pioneers for the Players Page in 2009 into 2010, battling with both Alvin and Enmead.
I will say that when I was making this list, I actually didn't realize that
I had to
like
tell you
David
that.
McPartland was Bubbles.
Yeah, I had to
So
tell you
when I
that.
was making my list, I was not factoring that in for Bubbles, and probably would have considered him more if I was.
Uh-huh. I
I mean, I will
think
say one thing.
oh yeah, you go.
Go ahead.
Or no, I was
I
just
was
gonna
gonna go.
say I was a little bit lower on the players page guys who just didn't have kind of elite times, and honestly, I might have been a little bit too low on some of these guys, but that was just so important to me is having standout times relative to era to like tip your cap to, and it's just that was my biggest hang up with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing that in terms of players page champions, it's hard to. I think some of that history is very like cloudy, especially around that era due to all the cheating. You have players
Yeah,
like Jorge and some others who kind of with them being removed, kind of makes that terms of like past champions list around that era a little bit difficult. So maybe what we see now is a little bit clearer than what it was back then, um, in terms of duration and things like that. But yeah, again, I think that goes back to our values of I thought I think looking at some of his records, even if they didn't last long, I think some of that has to do with era, right?
hmm
Being in late 2008, 2000, early 2009, records weren't lasting as long,
for
and
sure.
he also wasn't defending his records as much due to the fact that he was busy on the players page, right? So he'd go and set a record, and then whatever, I'm third worldwide now, I'd rather beat my time that's 50th, right? So I think that parts of how he values how he played the game, right? But it you are completely right that I think that's the reason I don't have him any higher on the list, is that he doesn't have that high quality, nor does he have extreme longevity.
There's another guy on this list who I know you because of the honorable mentions that I would also agree is just a better player from 2009. I think we'll probably get to him pretty soon.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yes.
that is just, and he just ticks more of the boxes of what I value. So that's just kind of all what it comes down to. But
Mhm.
Matt, who do you got at 19?
Yeah, so this guy was brought up in Spencer's honorable mentions. This is where I have Vincent Barone.
Oh, okay.
Um, I know that you guys don't have him on the list. I'm alone on this. I'm the high man on Vincent, so I'll take it away with him. He's got 22 world records, all of which on no glitch, over 3,200 days total duration. And what really sets Vincent apart from a lot of players is the just sheer quality of some of his times. For the longest time, he was a goldmine track specialist, taking the time down from like very, very high 150 all the way to a 150.5. Had a little battle with Luke there that he ended up winning when Luke was in his prime, which was like a truly incredible thing at the time. Like nobody thought that was possible, and Vincent did it.
He
His
was the only player who ever beat Luke in his
155.79.
prime. And I think that's
Yeah,
just an unbelievable thing. Like, or that's just one of the greatest parts about his legacies. He was the only guy who beat prime Luke in a record battle.
yeah.
So
I mean, his 150.579, I think, is a little bit overrated as a record, but I still think is a truly incredible time. Not to mention, he's held RMR record for close to 1,000 days now, and this isn't a record, but he's got a 117.824 on MC3, which, if not for, the guy we just mentioned earlier, Luke, like, if he didn't exist, this would be, I don't know, easily a top 5 record in the game. One of the best records of all time. Like, that, I think that's the best time he's ever set.
hmm
It's truly incredible. He's got a solid timesheet, and I'll bring this up for some players here, some of the more modern guys. 61 MKL points, not perfect, but that tells you that he is competing at a high level on a lot of tracks. I think he's one of the 5 best pure drivers ever. And I think what really holds Vincent back on this list is that he just doesn't have the highest peak relative to era. I think currently he's, somewhere between the 6th and 8th best player in the world. I'm not sure if that's his like all-time peak relative to era. It might be, but compared to a lot of other guys, that's a little bit lower. But he has very good longevity. He's been around for over a decade, so I've got Vincent at 19.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I had him just outside the top 20, and I mean, I'm kind of sold that I do think he's definitely a better player than Zeke. I initially had them together, and I think I'm kind of underrating the other aspects of what Vincent has done in terms of going toe-to-toe with Luke. Also, like you mentioned, he's not a top 5 player at any time. Like, he's not top 5 peak in any era. I'm not sure if that's true. Like you said, he's 6'8" now, which is probably about where I'd have him. It's just so hard when you're competing with Luke, Logan, Sosis. It's just like,
Yeah.
these guys are just absolute tanks. It's like, how do you come up with that, or how do you come up and beat that? But yeah, his legacy on WGM. It's a shame that he wasn't able to set one when both new strategies were implemented, the beginning turn skip and the detach. He got close, never quite got the job done, and it's just the track was never the same for him. I think he really appreciated how kind of pure the old strats were for the track, and these made it a lot less consistent. Well, just mostly just the beginning turn skip. But yeah, the MC3 is another thing I think I was underrating. It is just really an amazing time, and it's just overshadowed by being Luke's second best track. So he is an amazing pure driver and is pretty versatile, playing many other tracks at a top 5 level. So I'm happy to see him on this list for sure.
You got anything to say about Vincent hydration?
I mean, nothing that, hasn't already been said, right? I agree with, I forget if it was Matt or Spencer, talked about, his 5.79 on Goldmine. I do think it is slightly overrated. And I think it would have been beat faster than a lot of, players, or a lot of people give it credit for, or a lot of people rate it as. It had already stood for 970 days, but I think it was a sort of thing, I think once Luke came back, he would have beaten it.
Yeah, he was like days from beating it before Justin dropped that insane run.
Yeah.
So it was a matter of time until that was gone.
And I think Luke, for a while had potential to beat it. I think back, even, back when Vincent was, competing with Luke, Luke's lap 1 in his 6.63, which is his last world record before strat changes, was a 9.16, and Vincent's 5.79 had a 9.68, right? So it's clear that it wasn't like, everything had been tapped out of that category. Maybe to the 2019 standards it was. But I think, in today's lens, there were definitely some weaknesses there that would have eventually been exploited. Not to take away from, what Vincent achieved there, especially, taking down Luke in his prime. But I think that's an important note to mention.
You gotta remember what the lap 2 and 3 was though on that run. It was
That's fair.
They were both within like 20 milliseconds of BKS.
It was like a BKS. I thought one was a BKS and one was however far from the other lap from being BKS.
They were both.
It was ahead of its time
close.
with set.
Oh, for sure.
I just think,
and again, I just have so much respect for him because he was the only guy who beat Prime Luke. Like nobody was doing that, and it's just like to be able to get that one over Luke, and then also to the point where Luke didn't try to play it for like a long time after that, like seriously. And if he did, he just stopped playing because he couldn't do it. So I just think it was very impressive what he was able to do there.
But yeah.
All right.
So
Spencer, who do you have at number 19?
Moving into my 19 spot, I have Chaos. Do either of you guys have Chaos here?
I do. I've got him at 17.
I do. I have him in my top 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
I see the vision, and honestly, I am a little bit low on Chaos, I think. He's just at 19, but I just kind of liked everybody that I had above him. But Chaos was truly one of the best players of all time.
Yeah.
He was kind of the first player in terms of like top end record talent to like break away from the rest of the pack. He had 5 world records concurrently, and he held 4 or 5 world records concurrently, I believe, for over a year. He battled with Enmead for best in the world in late 2011 before he was able to win that battle pretty conclusively in 2012 and just continued as best in the world for most of that year. He set over 3K duration. It's a little bit muddy because he has a lot of no shortcut duration, which is kind of like going through his record profile, you definitely have to parse through it. He has records on all 3 Grumble categories, which is weird. So some of the glitch stuff that he set, I think, they're just lower quality records. But the rock hop stuff, he was the person who brought rock up to current standard. I believe it was Doom who had it before him. Yeah, it was Doom, and the standard that Chaos brought to that category was significantly higher. I definitely respect those records as higher quality ones, even though they don't count to his totals, but it kind of balances out the stuff that he has that's a little bit more shenanigans. But yeah, just the ability to, throughout 2011, he was kind of that first dominant player, or he was the second dominant player who had an extended run at the top of the game like that. So for me, Chaos at 19 could have had him higher probably. He had 10 unique tracks. He was doing it across a diverse variety of them. And I really value the fact that he was best in the world for so long at such an early time. So just based on that, like I probably could have him higher here. So Riley, let's hear him. Why do you, actually, let's wait. Let's have you touch on him
we'll
in our
hold
next
off
episode.
into the next episode, yeah.
And then, so Matt, what do you got to say about Chaos in a similar range that I have him?
Yeah, so I think for me it was a lot of the same points that you have. I mean, the guy set 40 total world records. That's great volume. Some of them, a lot of the early glitch records weren't that good, but he did have 27 no glitch records, and while some of them weren't, the most serious categories, a lot of them were on decent stuff. Notable Toad's Factory player from back in the early days. I think he was the first player to get the sub
Yes,
151.
He was.
And yeah, like you said, 3,300 day total duration. For that time period, like that's quite
very
standout. Peaking at 5 world records, and yeah, like I also think he was the best player in the world for, at least a year, and just has a great legacy, man.
Mm-hmm. And I also just think he set some really, really high quality records. Like he had a BC3 record that, Vayu and Choi both beat it. It was both of those times beat it by less than 50 milliseconds. And it's like, 51 milliseconds. And it's like that time could have stood for over 2 years if it wasn't for 2 runs barely edging him out. That was an incredibly strong time to be hitting a 158 on mock bike on BC3 in 2010. Like that time has always been one of my favorite times for him. Obviously, he pushed BCW down. And then also, he went toe-to-toe with Yasha on CM in Yasha's era there. And obviously, Yasha gets the 1K duration for his 2011 record lasting. But Chaos hit the first 156. He was able to beat him there. His record wasn't the one that lasted. But those two at the same time were so far ahead. They might have been almost a second ahead of third worldwide at the time. So I just think he set some really high quality records. He set a low 116 Moo in mid 2010. Like it didn't stand for very long, but I do think I think Moo Meadows was a track that was probably further ahead of its time for the era. I think that's definitely a pretty strong time. And it's just like, there are lower quality records, but that kind of is what's going to happen when you have a world record count of 40 starting in 2008, 2009. So I was very impressed with the resume that Chaos was able to do, and then the dominance that he was at the peak of his powers for almost a year.
This isn't something I factored into my list, but I feel like Chaos is one of those early like legendary figures, just in the way that older players talk about the guy. And I think he was the first player to like that people at the time acknowledged like this is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody's even close. I think
Well, and he
even
was
at
like
Enmead's
13 when he was
peak.
doing all of this. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he was 9 when he set his first world
I
record.
was about to say he was young.
Like I think Yasha was 11, but I think Chaos was 9. I could be wrong about that exact age, but his peak years are literally when he was like 13. And I remember in an Enmead video, I think it was Enmead, but it might have been just Chaos himself. Somewhere I heard him talking about how like when he was like setting his first records, he would literally just watch the world record ghost and copy every strat they did. I think it might be a DDR run that he did that does something that just isn't optimal because like the previous world record fucked it up and he just copied it because he assumed it was faster. Like he was playing the game like this at such a young age and he was still beating people, which is just absurd. Like, yeah, this doesn't really factor into having him higher or lower. I just think it's a crazy anecdote about him. Like
He's just one of the
hilarious.
all-time talents.
yeah. Like, and he came back. He set a 159 or 149 on TF. Honestly, that was a while ago, but it was in the 2020s.
Yeah.
That's something that doesn't really move the needle for me, but it was cool to see him come back, play the game for a little bit. He played a little bit of lounge, I think, longer than he was TTing. But yeah, no, actually, it wasn't even a 149. I think it was like a 0.6. He had regionals for a little bit, I think. So, yeah, Chaos, truly an all-time great.
I'm sure we'll hear Riley wax
Yes.
poetic about him next time.
He's probably licking his chops right now. We got that off without him. So, Riley, who do you got at your 18 spot?
Am I 18? I know you mentioned
Oh, wait,
this
did we
guy
skip your
earlier.
19?
No, we did his
No.
19.
No. Yeah,
I had
sorry.
Bubbles.
It was Bubbles. Yeah. So, who's at your 18?
Yeah, so at number 18, I have Brendan. I know you mentioned. I know that was
yeah,
the
yeah.
player you were getting at.
This is
with
where I
his-
have him as well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I had him. I think he has a stronger resume than Bubbles. 44 world records on 13 uniques, kind of from like August 2008 to like end of 2009. Really short career, but really solid. I think he was clearly the best 2009 player. He had like 4 concurrent records for like part of 2009, which at that time was pretty crazy.
I don't think anyone else had 4 concurrents during 2009. I could be wrong.
I don't think anyone did.
If
But
anyone did, it was
sort
like
of
Alvin at the very beginning.
Yeah. But it was sort of an era where like it was post 2008 rush where like everyone, was setting 70 million world records. But it was also, still an extremely active time where, there's so many records being set. It was kind of that like in between phase, right? Where it was still definitely more on the quantity over quality spectrum, but it wasn't. But the idea of putting multiple world records at a time, holding 4 of them, was really extremely impressive. But yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say about his individual records. I think that's probably his weakest part of his timesheet is just a lack of longevity on his records. I think his BCB no shortcut is definitely his strongest, standing for 190 days at least on the no shortcut side. But he was just able to handle so many different categories. I mean, 13 uniques. I know uniques were a little bit easier back then, but that's still very impressive and holds up very well.
Mm-hmm. I like view it like, again, the biggest hurdle. I agree with all that you said. The biggest hurdle for him is like he doesn't have quality world records, and he is no different than Bubbles in this regard. The thing that does it for me is just there are a couple things, but one of them is just the fact that he was able to be the best player in the world from about January 2009 to November. Like he really fell off in November, and that's where the longevity kind of peters off. He sets 2 world records in December of 2009, and that's kind of it. None of his records last very far into 2010. But it's just the fact that like this was such a competitive era of the game. He peaks at 4 records and he holds 4 concurrently for a lot of the year. And it's like if you fast forward into 2010, after Brendan falls off, nobody gains a foothold in terms of holding like there's a lot of people with 2 records, but people are really struggling to hold more than 2 concurrent records. And the fact that he had 4 and he was doing it on all kinds of different categories. Another reason I just forgive the fact that he just doesn't have the quality of record is he was constantly getting to record level on different tracks. 13 unique tracks, and I believe all of these runs are no glitch.
Yeah, I think so.
So he sets records on 13 different no glitch tracks throughout 2009. I don't really care that none of them were super strong because he wasn't necessarily playing a category to kill it, and just the fact that he was able to get to that level on so many different tracks is just so impressive to me. I debated having him higher, and also in retrospect, like, is he better than Chaos? He might not be. The reason I had him above Chaos is just I felt 2009 was considerably more competitive than when Chaos started to take over the game into late 2011. I thought post 2010, a lot of the crazy competition had died down. People have started to separate themselves further on tracks. So people were starting to be able to amass more than 2 world records concurrently regularly. So I think that's why I had him above Chaos. But there's an argument for even both to be higher. But yeah, so that's why I had Brendan at 18. And I just think despite not having strong records, I think his resume is incredibly strong. And I think he's definitely an overlooked player. He's one of my favorites from the early era of the game.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I had Brendan as an honorable mention, and I think what really holds him back for me is the same thing that holds back, personally for me, a lot of the early guys, not all of them, which is just a lack of longevity and not necessarily the best record quality. But like you said, this guy was the best player in the world for most of 2009. BC Wii and Toad's Factory track specialist, but 13 unique tracks was just really good just about everywhere. I think when it comes to his 223, 362 on BC Wii, it lasted 192 days. I think that's a bit overinflated because the glitch was discovered not too long after he said it. But yeah, this guy is one of the legendary players of the game, along with a Nobuo and a Chaos of the early eras.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to get into your 18, Matt? You got there.
Yeah, so at 18, I have a contemporary of a lot of these early guys. I've got Enmead here. Where do you guys have him? Is he on your list?
For me, this is the guy. This was my honorable mention. This was my really tough cut for Axel. I had him at 20, and then I just decided I really liked the record quality of what Axel did, and that's what did it for me. But Enmead would be like my 21. He was for sure my toughest cut. I'm sure Riley has him in the top 20.
I do not. I have him a little bit outside. He's definitely top 25 for me.
Wow.
I thought for sure if you had Bubbles at 19, you would take Enmead for sure. That's actually crazy to me.
I'll let Big Bork get into
lay out the case for Enmead. I'm shocked that you have Enmead the highest of all of us. This is actually crazy to me because I think Nate had him at 20. So yeah, you are the highest on Enmead of all of us. So make the case.
Okay, yeah. So Enmead's a super interesting player. I want to of course make a note that this guy is one of, if not the greatest inspiration to time trial players in this game. Has been
for sure
for a long time the main content creator around time trials, and he returned to the game in the late 2010s and in spurts throughout the 2020s, and I feel like the perception on Enmead has shifted a bit over time to the point where I think he's gotten a little bit underrated by the community in general. His weak point compared to a lot of the guys on this list is he only set 16 world records, and while yes, they were all no glitch and he did have about 2,500 day total duration, he just didn't really have any truly standout records. His best one's probably his last RMC record, a 131.421. Lasted about 2 years, but even still, it doesn't really move me that much. But what Enmead does have is he was the Players Page champion from early 2010 to late 2011, which was a very long duration back in the day. And something I think that's forgotten about is he peaked at 4 world records, and I think was the first guy who you could say really separated himself from the pack as clearly the best player in the world for an extended period of time, even more so than like Brendan. Because while I did think Brendan was the best in the world, there was no argument against Enmead back in the day. Because he was the Players Page champion, and he had the most world records. His best player in the world status was just bulletproof. And I think it's also important to note that this guy came back, and he set some nice times. Specifically, his RBC 230 is just incredible. So yeah, that's where I stand on Enmead.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. He definitely peaked higher. Well, he's peaking at one like Brendan, but like the gap between the rest of the community, he was that first standout player because he was able to pair having slightly more concurrent records than the rest of the field with being PP champion for an extended amount of year. And I'm in your boat too. The 230 on RMC really does move me. He pushed himself so hard for that record, and I think 230 is just such an amazing time now still. Obviously it wasn't set that long ago, only a couple of years. But yeah, I think that definitely the thing you mentioned that is my biggest holdup on Enmead is the record quality, and that's ultimately what kept him down at 21. But I do think just
Yeah.
And also like I don't really put much into the 2017 records. They just the
I
two
don't
RBC
either.
ones later either.
Yeah.
I know you don't.
We need to mention those.
Yeah.
So that's just like, it doesn't really take too much off his duration or anything, but in terms of being a record level contender, I purely view him as a guy from late 2009 into 2011. He ends up losing the battle with Chaos, but also like Chaos was just that guy. And also, I don't remember
I've got
exactly
Chaos the spot above him.
Mm-hmm. And I don't exactly, and that's also why I have Chaos above Envy too, is he just kind of snatched his chain and had similar longevity as best in the world. But it's unfortunate. I really think if Enmead had stuck around and played a year later than he did, he honestly could be like 5 to 10 spots higher had he had given us one more year at top level. Even if he's not best in the world in 2012, if he just gets some more records that are potentially higher quality records that last a little bit longer, I think that would have been huge for him. But yeah, I mean, he showed the ability to come back, still compete, not at record level, but he was a worldwide top 10. Well, he achieved him on many tracks. He contended on other ones. So he showed his ability to modernize his driving, especially on RBC, which I think is really impressive. But ultimately, again, I just think some of the guys above him, I just like their case a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm just a little higher on his peak than most people.
Yeah,
that's fair.
For sure.
I think for me, it really hurt not to include him on my list because
for sure
he
it also
has been
did for me.
He's a huge inspiration for me, in terms of getting into this game. Even before I would consider I truly joined the community in 2020, but I had been following, watching, and time trialing myself for a long time before that. And I think Enmead, especially, up until I joined the community into that time period from 2017 to 2021, I would say, with a huge influence on me. But in terms of his records, that's his weak point, right? And I think we've already gotten to that. 14 records if we're getting into the Russo stuff, right? But on 4 different tracks, I think his records aren't, they're good for the time. And, he was able to keep him in a 4 concurrent, but I don't think any of them are a truly standout record, right? I think his timesheet is where you really see the strength of him, naturally holding the Players Page champ for, a decent amount of time. I want to say 600 or 700 days.
A little over 600.
Yeah. So for him, I think that's really strong and definitely his high point. I think him coming back definitely says a lot. His ability to, keep grinding some of those tracks, get some pretty decent times. But I think I think I can sort of define him by potential. I think back in those days, I know he mentioned having a lot of different times at second or third worldwide, and I think it was been completely plausible for him to hit 7 uniques, or something like that, right? And I think even today,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of times that I think he could hit if he really grinded it and continued, but he didn't, right? Um, so I think he had such a high level of driving back then, even for his level today. But I don't think he really finished the job like other players did. And I went back and forth between him and Bubbles, and I'm still not sure what my truly correct decision is, because I really tried to let go of my personal biases towards Enmead. Um, I think longer players page champ than Bubbles. Um, but I think a similar longevity in terms of time, maybe slightly favoring Enmead. But Bubbles set, you know, 3 times the amount of world records. You know, across 9 uniques compared to 4 uniques, and I think it's a lower quality, but I think the quantity is so much higher.
All right.
I think he was your guy, and you kind of just graded him a little hard. And
That's fair.
Yeah.
this isn't really relevant to like how we rated him at all, but you just called him potential man. It was a little bit frustrating when he'd go through when he did his timesheet review, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I can PR on 28 tracks out of the 32 this year just for him to set one PR because he's busy and can't play the game." It's like, dude, we know you're not going to play the game. You don't got to say all this. And
Yeah.
and another thing is, Matt, how on earth was RMC at a 131.4 for 4 years? Like, that's absurd.
Don't ask me, man. I don't know what they were doing, bro.
Like, it's just like you have Enmead with a year-long world record gets beat by 14 milliseconds by Vayu. It lasts 200 days, and then he comes back, beats it by 9 milliseconds, and it lasts 3 years or 2 years. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is just completely unrelated. I think that's one of my favorite little tidbits on MKWRS. It's just like, how on earth did that happen? So
Thankfully,
who are we at
Demon
now?
saved us all.
He did. Is it my 17 next?
Has everyone
Have
said
you done
18?
your 18?
Mine was Brendan.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Now
Have you
we're on
done
the
your 17 hydration? Or do
I
you
have
want to go,
not.
Spencer?
I'll let you go, Spencer.
No, you got it. You got it if you haven't gone for 17.
All right. I think I think you guys are gonna be really unhappy with this one.
Oh,
I have
boy.
Connor at my 17.
Whoa.
Okay, he's
Where
in my
do you
top
guys
10.
have him? He's in your top 10. How about you, Spencer?
Yes, I will be talking about him on a different episode. I will say though,
Okay.
Nate. Okay, Nate was way higher on him than you, but Nate at least would have been talking about him this episode. So,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, obviously Connor's a great player, but honestly,
Yes.
tell us why he's at 17 and not why he's higher.
Yes. Okay. So, I could get into how great he is. It's 31 world records, 5 uniques, right? I agree with what you said about the best pure tech player in the game's history. Um, I just think at the end of the day, has he done it on any other track compared to the records he set? He's sort of a one-trick pony in a way. You will never see this guy touch the spear. You'll never see this guy touch the Magic Cruiser or any other vehicle, or the Mach Bike for that matter, right? I think he's allergic to it.
No. That
like,
Benjelata DKS time, don't slander him. He can play Mach if he wanted to. That was a
Well, he
ridiculous time that he hit.
Dude, he has a 148.4 on RWS Mach.
Yeah, dude, it's like insane.
Okay. I don't see any mock world records on his MK World Records page, and that's all
Okay,
I'm saying.
bro.
Anyway, getting back into this, he had GV no shortcut, and he still has it today, and I think it's a lot stronger now. I think he barely beat Barney, but I think his DK Summit time's good. It's obviously great, but he got outdone by Blake on multiple occasions. Although he put up a really good fight. And I think he definitely has better driving there than Blake. In terms of GV no shortcut, a lot of his records come from that, kind of just like inch by inch taking down that category, which I think is very respectable, right? And I think those were definitely some very strong times before the TAS before the TAS cut got introduced. His RWS is his magnum opus, so has set multiple world records there. 600 days on his 275. He's at 162 so far on his 147 732. But I feel like he's the kind of player And I think his TF no shortcut also should be mentioned because that's one of the strongest records in the game. But he's the kind of player that isn't pushed unless someone tries to push him, right? I don't think he's the kind of player that goes out and gets a world record on his own very often, in terms of like beating his own record. He's like, oh, this player beat me. I'm gonna beat him back, and then maybe I'll get a little bit extra for assurance, right? And I think that hurts him a little bit because he doesn't have as much, I guess, separation from a lot of other players on certain tracks. Barely having GV. He has RWS by a decent bit right now, but he kind of recently took that down. So I don't know exactly where that's going to go, right? I'm not sure exactly how far off like Tiles and them are.
Tiles is
Tiles
0.7.
he's 50 milliseconds off, and then Falco is 0.3. So he kind of barely beats him and hasn't done that much other than that, right? So I think that's his main knock, along with the lack of variety, right? But I think he has the extremely high peak on the category, in the area that in his area of domain, but I just don't see much other than that.
Are you aware that Connor has a 118.026 on MC3 hydration?
Is that on worldwide tops?
It's
Yes.
ninth.
It's 9.
It's 9th. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
He also has a 130 on RMC.
I mean, I wouldn't really be bringing this up, but you kind of insinuated that this man couldn't do driving and couldn't play the mock bike, and it's like...
I mean, he can do driving, but I don't think it's at that high of a level. Like, I don't think any of us have, some of the players like, Bin or Backcake on that list who have better times than him on there, right? Obviously, they don't have the high peak on other categories, right? But I think it's an important time to mention, but I don't think it moves the needle for me that much. Like, I'm not saying he's gonna hit a 118.7 on RMC3, right? But I don't think he's quite there.
Does Mel have an MC3 time? What the fuck?
Yeah.
I don't even
Yeah,
remember that
does.
being
He's
set.
like 1 millisecond faster.
Oh my god.
Dude, he has a lot of random times that are really good.
Yeah, no, I know he's really fast. I didn't even realize he had that time. But also obviously we'll get into Connor more next episode. I think you're kind of a little short though. His recent records in terms of being pushed, he really only comes back for the reclaim. That might be true, but if you look at what he did to GV Shortcut, he was one of the players who kind of brought that track up to standard finally.
No
It
shortcut.
took a long time to get there. And Mushroom Gorge, he was really the person who pushed the shroomless, the hopless gap era. He was the guy who led that charge to get the record down, and he ultimately got the 0.7. It wasn't just outclassed by Alpert in the future, but he was so much better than everybody else at that track at the time too, and he really optimized how the mushroom skip was done. He was a lot better at that than anyone else. And then also, of course, he's been chipping away at RWS like forever now, for like 5 years really. I mean, his first record came in 2019, got beat by Ace, but he's been chipping away at that category for a long time. And it's like Falco has persisted a long time, never was able to get it. Tiles came out of nowhere, and he was still able to beat him back. So it's a fair criticism, but we'll get more into him later. I don't know, Matt, if you want to say anything real quick. But
yeah.
Or sorry, Riley, if you were going to respond to that, you can go first. That's my bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put a lot of respect on that MG. He got the first 140, which I think is impressive, right? And he pushed a little bit. But Luke was having like the biggest mental block of like his life on that category. I think, who was his competition? Daniel, like Irish Daniel.
It's not
but
his
he
fault.
set all of
Luke
his records there.
RQ'd the track after failing task gap once.
But he set a bunch of world records in like over like 2 months, and then set one maybe like 7 months later, and then Alperin came in and just kind of tore the category apart. I think that category, while it had a lot of activity, wasn't optimized, nearly as much as it should have been.
You're also forgetting the new strat though that got introduced. Like, there was just a lot of the boost panel.
Like turn the mushroom one
from the green mushroom. That is, I mean,
was that Alperin's first record?
No.
I thought that was Logan's. I thought that was Logan's record.
Logan's first record.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Alperin beat him by 0.1 like, what is this, a year later,
Yes.
he ends up being ahead by 0.1. That's not a huge gap to me. It was like him and Alperin were much better than everybody else. And then it's like Logan breaks the track open with the new strat. I think you're underrating what he did on MG.
It's fair.
I just want to say, like, yeah, he doesn't necessarily push records the most, but man, when somebody does take one from him, he gets it back quick, fast, and in a hurry. Like, he just dominates them afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Barney did
Except
the
for
work
Blake.
to bring GV down with him. He just ended up taking it when it was already pretty strong.
Yeah. Except for
Blake's
Blake,
different.
dude.
Blake's a psychopath.
Blake will never go down, dude.
Nobody in their right
is
mind
true.
plays DK Summit for 14 years with the Jimmy cut. Like, I mean, Connor's just a normal person for calling it quits. It's like, you think you got it, you get a 0.5, which is another anecdote that I think is hilarious. The first two 144s were both 0.5s, and for like a year it stood as those were the only 144s on the track. But yeah, no, he thought he had him, and nope, Blake's still there. So it's like, I don't know if I would want to compete against Blake on the Jimmy cut if I were him. And it's like, Matt'll tell you, he thinks that Connor's better at everything but the Jimmy. But again, we're probably talking a little bit too much about Connor. We'll make the case. We'll make the case next episode. Okay, so is it back to me at my 17?
Yeah, my 17 was Chaos.
Okay. So I have Blaze at 17. Do you have him higher, Matt?
Okay.
I've got him at 16.
Okay.
I have him at 14.
Okay.
So we're actually pretty close on him.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, guys.
We were pretty close on Enmead, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is probably the player that we're overall the closest on. So yeah,
so far.
Blaze. I think the biggest argument against him really was his longevity, and also this dude was playing against Liam and then Prime Luke. So his competition and a window to become like best in the world, kind of not there. He had a chance versus Liam, but he was more of a budding player at that point. You're just cooked versus Luke. But he peaked at 5 world records currently. He had over 4,000 days in duration. Now, a lot of it was weird. 500 of that was, or 600 of that was split between RSL and RDH duration. So he's really got like 3,400 days of like quality duration. He has like 23 world quality records. Four more were RSL glitch, and 1 more was RDH glitch. And then he did it over 9 unique tracks, and for a total of a little under 25% of duration. But for him, the biggest thing is what he did to the categories he had world record on. He absolutely revolutionized BCW glitch, GV2 no shortcut, Mushroom Gorge, not to quite the same extent. And then GV and Mumu, he only sets 1 record on each, but they were both somewhat strong records at that point. Not like the strongest or anything, but it's just, I think the work that he's done on his tracks to make them better, a lot of them, is what gets him up here. And then I also forget, his second world record was beating a 1,700-day world record on Yoshi Falls. So I think the world record repertoire that he has, he's just so many quality ones. And like, he had a 208 caliber BCW run in 2019. It's just that he missed the trick, which is really unfortunate. That run it's so fun to watch. The driving in it was great. And then GV2, like, that track was in shambles when he got the record, still being at a 0.9 in late 2017, and he brings it all the way down to a 0.7. I think that is just so impressive on a pure driving track like that. And then MG, he another track that lagged a little bit behind due to the glitch. He helps get it into place before, obviously, Hopless ends up taking over and is much faster and more strats are discovered. But just for the era in 2017 through 2019 that he played mostly at a top level, I just think he was a very solid player, peaking as a arguably top 3, definitely top 5 player in the world.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, 28 records, over 4,000 day duration. I think his MG, specifically the 141.256 that lasted for almost 2 years, was definitely up to par for the time. Even if it didn't age the best, I think even without the new strats, it would have been exposed a little bit when people really got active there. But his GV 2.7,
I mean, the track just got easier. Like Task Gap was harder.
just incredible. I
but
mean,
yeah,
that's true, but Task
I
Gap's
do
not like- it's
I
not
do
all
agree.
bad.
It wasn't a super strong record. It wasn't like the crux of his legacy, but I do think it was
Yeah.
cool that he had that. And then he also set the last one right as Topless was being done. He just said, "Fuck it. Here's an 8 millisecond improvement with
Yeah.
Task." But yeah,
I mean, I think his highlight is really his GV2 play. Like, his .7s, especially the first one at the time he set it, was just remarkable. One of the best records, of all time. And, I mean, his 796 is actually the record that got me into playing the game. I remember watching it back in the day and thinking, hey, this is pretty cool. I'm a hop on, and I still haven't beaten it. It's been 8 years.
not even close.
Yeah, not even close.
Like that just is a really good time.
Yeah. And you have to talk about his BCW glitch, as you did earlier. Really revolutionized that category, brought it up to standard. I mean, he peaked at 5 records, as you said. I think he was a top 2 to 4 player. I don't think he was ever the best player in the world. I think Liam always had it over him. And, at that same time, would you argue Fox is still the best player in the world? Maybe. And, is CT main Luke maybe even the best player in the world over him? Maybe.
Nah,
But at worst,
that's
he's the
revisionist
4th best
history.
player.
We're not giving that credit.
I don't know, man. He was a demon.
He was a demon, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, I think our small ranking disparity just comes based on the players we have around him,
For sure.
and not with our actual difference in how we value him. I think 3 categories he either optimized to a level or completely changed. I think BCW glitch he completely changed. I think GV2 no shortcut. There isn't much to change there, right? But he optimized it to oblivion, and same with MG.
Dude, he was so good at the shroom there. Like, it's incredible.
Oh, I mean, yeah. But he has those 3. I consider them like his standout records. But then he has 8 uniques, right? And sure, 2 of them are RSL, and then I forget what the other one was. That was a little bit
Desert Hills.
Yeah, Desert Hills. But still, I mean, even if you take those away as 6 uniques, I mean, that's still very strong. I believe he had 5 concurrent at one point in 2019. I don't know if you could ever, like, as you said, I don't know if you could ever consider him best in the world, but he was right up there and competing, and definitely probably at a case at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Just one of the most talented players ever, too.
Yeah, took BCW down nearly a second and took GV2 down like 150. Like, those are just insane time cuts for the respective tracks. So
I would have loved if he kept playing. I mean, it would be interesting to see, if how he would fight against some of the more modern players, right?
It would be really interesting to see how he would have aged.
I thought about this recently. I think if he stayed active throughout all this time, today he'd probably be a top 3 to 6 player in the world, right up there with your Connors and Sosis.
I would be really interested to see if, I mean, obviously Barney would have never gotten GV2 records, so rip that. But seeing him battle Sosis on GV2 would have been awesome to see.
Yeah.
Like, I don't actually know who would have won there. I think Blaze would have held it for longer. It's possible that Sosis eventually catches him because the level that he's just at as a pure driver is ridiculous.
Yeah. I think Sosis would have beat him out eventually, but yeah.
And it would have been awesome to see Jared have some mock competition. I really, it's such a travesty that we never got all the mock players. We never got to see a 208 being the record on mock. And it's possible that the time would be a little bit faster right now just to be, I mean, record's not good on Flame Rudder, but it's so far ahead. I don't know. That's just my pipe dream, but I think what he did on those 2 tracks is just so
I
incredible.
also think it sucks that there was never like a BCW mock glitch battle.
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
know, it feels like one player had it, then the next player took it over. You know, like I guess Axel lost the record for a bit and then got it back, but
but
like
then it was over for a
other
year
than
and a
that,
half.
yeah, I mean, there was no real competition, and I think there is a little bit now with Flame Runner, but I think it's just because no one has pushed it far enough. I think it's
Yeah.
getting there, but it's not there yet.
There's like no
But yeah,
competition. It's just like multiple people can get it because it's not pushed.
yeah,
So yeah, no, I think if there was an actual battle, but I think he brought it down over a second without a battle there. Like he completely changed how the track was played in terms of how you drove the like first through like fourth turns and then how he did the wheelie into the glitch. And also his glitches were just so much faster than anybody else had ever done them. I mean, no, it was literally everything that he revolutionized on the track. He was so much better than anyone else at that point. And like if you look at Fox's 209 and then you look at his 209.1, it's just like there's no comparison. It's like a completely different world. So, yeah, Riley, who do you got at your 16 spot?
at
Unless
my
we've already covered them.
16,
I'm gonna forget. Like
no,
we're gonna get to players that you
oh,
guys have already
100%.
covered, and I'm just gonna forget. So just let me know.
We haven't mentioned Vayu yet, right?
No, that was an
We
honorable
have not.
mention, but yeah, we have not.
Okay,
I
I have
forgot
Vayu
about
at
that. Yeah.
16. Does anyone else have him ranked?
No,
Nope.
but I'm super happy to see him here.
Okay, yeah. So talk a little bit about Vayu. He's the kind of player I didn't realize, how how much of a resume he has until I really looked into it. Right, he has 46 world records across 11 uniques. He started in May 2008, right? But 30 of his world records come from between 2009 and when he stopped setting world records in 2011, right? Which I think was a very competitive time. He held three concurrent records in 2011. Um, I don't know, at what point or if at any point he was best in the world, or where exactly he ranked at different times because he was somewhat spread across the early years of the game. But he was just very strong. I mean, I think that variety mixed with some pretty decent times. I think his main knock against him is that he doesn't have a standout really. He doesn't have a one that really stood for super long. I'd say his biggest one was DKJP No Shortcut at
Yeah.
500 days. Like I think that's definitely a standout, but I don't think he really has that one you know magnum opus time.
I think he was the Parkway GOAT until 2013. I guess Yash had one really long record in there, but he really did dominate that track. There's a ton of variety there, and half of his record total is coming, not quite half, but a lot of it is 2008 to early 2009. But I just think he's constantly a slept on player. In terms of his era, he did it both in well, on one track he did it in 2008, and then into 2009 he started getting records on all kinds of different categories. I don't think he peaked his best in the world. He had three concurrent, like you said. He
Yeah,
wasn't quite at the level of some of the people he was competing against, but he was consistently like a top five player in the world for a long time. So yeah, I had Vayu at 25. There were just a lot of people that I thought were a little bit better, but I'm super happy to see someone get him on this list.
Yeah.
I, I mean, at some points in 2011, there were people only had three concurrent. So like August 2011, I just pulled up a quick snapshot. Like it's Doom, Vayu, and Chaos at three,
Hmm.
right? So
But that
I think
was,
he has a case, but I don't think he was.
uh huh. Unfortunately, his BC3 only stood for 77 days because Choi beat it. Like I mentioned it earlier, like all three of those times were really strong. His Parkway
Yeah,
obviously stood a long time, and the RMC stood, but he wasn't a super. It didn't. It doesn't look like he was a super active player by this point. At the times
yeah,
that I had him for best in the world contention, there were periods in mid 2009 and mid 2010 where I thought he had a better argument, and I think he was tied atop like the at that time it was like no player had more than three concurrents. Um, but yeah, like he competed through like a lot of these older players, like Enmead has one early game era, Brendan has one early game era, um, But the thing with Vayu is he kind of transcended that, and he had multiple eras of doing that. It's just that I don't think he peaked as high in any of them as some of the other really old players that I do have on this list, and that's ultimately the separator for me. But almost 2K duration at this time is pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as Spencer, except I think I'm even a little lower on his peaks. He was certainly like a top 7 player in the world for quite a while. Good longevity for the time from, the 08 to 2011 era. And I think he probably hit top 5 at points, but I don't think he was ever really even close to the best player in the world personally. And that's what keeps him down for me.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And it's like, I was saying like 3 to 5 in like the brief periods from like 2009 and then 2010. But yeah, I think he was more like a top 7 player. Like that was more of his baseline.
Yeah.
Fair.
Still super good.
For sure.
100%.
And again, he's just one of these players that I think there's less is known about him, and I think he's a little bit more slept on. So I don't know if I'd go as high as 16, but again, loving some Vayu in the top 20. Awesome.
No, yeah, I think it's hard, I mean, he was a Japanese player who, I don't know how much contact he had, and I don't think we necessarily have that information.
I think
so
he's
I
on
don't
the players
think
page, though, so I think there's probably some.
Yeah, probably some. But I don't. He just didn't
page
have that
isn't
level
linked.
Oh, maybe he isn't then. Hold up.
But I don't think he had that level of, narrative building, right? That some of the other players could build. And I think narratives, are definitely part of the, greatest arguments. And I think not having any sort of narrative because so little, there is little known about you today. At least, from what we could find, I think that definitely can hurt the case sometimes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, who do you guys have in your 16?
We already went over mine. I had Blaze.
You had Blaze? Okay. So for me, at my 16 spot, okay, this one I'm going to get some flack one. This is the one where I'm already prepared. I have Breakson at 16. I'm sure one of you guys has him in the top 10, if not both.
Where do you have him?
I've got Breakson at 14.
Okay.
I have him in my top 10.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. You have him at 14. I'm glad I have one ally. I know Nate has him. There's a world where Nate has him as like the 6th or 7th best player. But for me, Breakson has a tremendous profile. His duration will be over 10K days in a few months. Like and he just has so much longevity at this point. My issue is, compared to some of these other players, he doesn't have the crazy high, especially no glitch peak, that the players around him he's contending with do. And so like relative to era, he doesn't have the peak, and then just a lot of his records do happen to be on the glitch side of things, which I just believe, especially at the time, while he was the glitch GOAT, it's like his Parkway time, for example, extremely impressive. There wasn't really competition until Envy came and beat it himself. So he was really far ahead of a lot of people on glitches in the late 2010s and was a top glitcher. Into the 2020s, I just think he only had 26K no shortcut duration. And for a player who played in the era that he did, that is just quite a low duration. He had 4 no shortcut records. He held 5 concurrently. But I just think the no period is best in the world as like a no glitch player, and he wasn't really remotely close at any point on no glitch. And then also I'm just kind of lower on some of his other records as well. So that's kind of the reasons I have Breakson lower at 16.
Yeah, I'm generally in a pretty similar boat to you. I mean, the first thing you want to say about Breakson is he has 55 total world records, which is 6th most all time. But yeah, a lot of them are really just fluff of like very, very unoptimized glitch times. I do want to shout out that like his Coconut Mall times, even from back then, very, very respectable. Like,
You're down on the glitch side?
think, yeah, on the glitch side.
Like he was,
I have a ton of respect for those specifically, but the other glitches
one of the
of
other
the time,
most dominant
not as much.
categories too.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
he did with CM. And if it
One of the
wasn't
best
for
track specialists
Beanzard
ever
kind of
there.
hoarding a mock bike strat, he would still have that concurrent, or the what is it called? Like the duration stat.
Yeah, the rain.
Rain.
Yeah,
The
rain. So if it wasn't for Beanzard hoarding that and was able to get one on him, like he'd have that. Like he's super dominant on CM. So I don't want to take away from that stuff. But yeah.
And yeah, I think he's come along as a no glitch player. As you know, we got into, a couple years into the 2020s. His Coconut Mall, like ending at a 155.2 was super, super impressive. I think that was a very good time. He just got RYF record recently, and I don't think that's a very strong record, but it's notable still. Yeah, I think currently he's a top 8 player in the game, and maybe peaked higher a little while ago, but I don't think he probably ever reached top 5 at
He
his
might
peak.
have been between like 2022, 2023. It was close though.
I don't think so. I think I would take the current 5 over him even then.
Yeah, that's fair. But that's also just such a hard place
It's
to
a super
be.
hard 5 to crack.
It really is. So he can't be blamed. But the work that he did on CM No Shortcut, it would be cool if he would come to beat Logan back there.
Yeah.
But no, he is definitely he's definitely the most influential CM player of the 2020s. It's not even close on No Shortcut. And obviously he's the CM GOAT for Shortcut. And that's not particularly close either. But yeah, it's just like, I just thought a lot of it was kind of like fluff and stuff. And I just kind of respected what other guys had a little bit higher.
Something I want to note about like this point in the list, for me at least, is that there is a pretty big shelf between like 15 and below 15.
Mm-hmm.
So like you may be seeing that like the stats that these guys have are like way, way higher than guys only a couple spots below them. It's just that there's actually is a massive gap at that spot.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I think I do. Which of these guys do you have? Which of your top 15 was already named besides Breakson?
I have Demon at 15, as we
Demon
said
at 15.
earlier.
Which is the guy? I'm trying. There's one guy.
I know. I already named Connor.
Okay. Oh yeah.
But
Like I think I have the same top 15 with you outside of my number 15, and that's just because I have Breakson lower. I would put the gap at 14, but I definitely do agree with you that everybody in this top 14, because I think we have the same names in a different order, just with how the list is shaking out. But I think these guys just have astronomical, like, world record statistics and stuff, compared to the guys that were fighting for like the 16 to 30 spots, and it was way more open. So
You're gonna say what you have on Breakson for?
Why do you
Yeah,
no, he'll save it, but why do you disagree with how we have the list tiered? Curious.
I don't necessarily think you're. I understand what you're going for. I personally, I think I have my gap at 14, starting at Blaze. I think it's because I'm low on Connor. I think I'm lower on Connor and higher on Breakson.
You're also
and then I
lower
also
on
have
Demon
outside.
Yeah.
I'm lower on Demon and Connor, and I'm higher on Breakson.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also higher on Chaos.
Yeah. So you have some more discrepancies.
Yeah.
I can't remember what's the last one that we've gone through that you have lower, but yeah.
I understand that. Like I have one my 15. I think. I don't know I don't think you guys have them on your list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
my
I think
15's the
14
same
is
boat.
Okay.
But it's like, for
So-
me, it's just with the guys in my top 14, and Breakson is up there in terms of stats. It's just like I struggle to put the older players above them just because the stats that they've amassed are just so massive, and also like, while it was a more competitive era, like these times that are being set like modern are just so much stronger. So it's really hard for me to balance that, and I just think the sheer volume that everybody has above the guys below are what makes it hard for me to put like a Brendan or a Chaos into that top 15 area.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And just lastly, I
Um,
would agree that like Brakeson was the best glitch player in the world for quite a while, but unfortunately, it was in what I consider to be the weakest glitch era in the game's history by quite a margin.
and that also is true, yeah. And like he wasn't contending with Nyake or one of the demons like that either.
Interesting.
Do we have
So
everybody's
are we on to
16?
14 now? Or no,
I
15?
think we might be on 15.
I have 15.
Have you 15 is demon for Matt. So Riley, who do you got at your 15 spot?
I have King Alex at 15.
Okay.
Oh,
so we have some
yeah.
crazy wild cards at 15 because my 15 is also off of both your lists.
Oh,
Okay.
tell us about King Alex, man.
Yeah.
Totally forgot
I'd
about
love
that.
you guys don't have him on your list?
He was an
Dude.
honorable mention for me.
He was
really
one of the
surprising.
lower honorable mentions for me.
Yeah.
He's just an interesting legacy. So let's hear it.
He does. He's a very interesting legacy. So just starting off, basic stats, MK World Records. 38 world records on 9 uniques. I think his biggest strength comes from his variety. He does have he has a couple 2008 records on bringing down DDR. And then, he had a pretty decent legacy on Desert Hills, taking that category throughout the 2009s into the 2010s, down to, I don't know if I don't think this was Rain, but he had like his first record was a 136.3, and then his last was like a 135.4. He's bringing that down on the spear. He had a couple of the Grumble Volcano records beating out, sort of the only person who could really compete with Nyaki on the bit bike, and eventually ended up winning that battle before the Quacker strat came through. He had DKJP, which I believe was a spiral skip time, but had a decent no glitch time there. He got MC No Shortcut, inventing the King Alex strat. I think his recent Peach Garden success is really important to note. I guess it's not that recent anymore, but kind of, took the auto strat further, got the first 158, which was, I think if the Flame Runner, hadn't taken over, that could still be record today if what's his name, Carter, still decides to use pause buffering. But I think that record was so close to like its limit with the pace lock there, and he really just grinded out that category. He had some kind of meh records, his Peach Beach glitch records, things like that. BCW Torpedo or on the spear. So I'm reading off MK World Records. His BCW spear records, and then I think his RYF no glitch back in 2018 was another. I think kind of showed off that he still had it on some of the core driving tracks, even if RYF is very QM based. And Brakeson took it 9 days later. Or I guess took it back. I continued his reign. It was a tied record. But I know I'm yapping a little bit, but I think it's a kind of thing you can't sum up quickly, his legacy, because it's so much variety. I mean, he set records from 2008 to 2020, and I mean, he's still changing things. Like he implemented the BCW flap last turn with the bullet bike. I know we don't value flap too much, but I think his work as an innovator is pretty interesting. He has a very interesting history.
He did a spear before too, I believe. I don't know if it was ever fast enough to do
He
that,
might have,
but I think he made it with spear first.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is like maybe the most unique player in the game's history.
For sure.
I don't think you could come up with a more random group of categories for a player to have a world record on if you tried.
It would be really hard.
There is no rhyme or reason to what this guy had. But he was, I mean, like you said, one of the great innovators that this game has seen. Well, I personally don't value that super highly. I think it's notable to note, like, whenever something new happened on a track, this is one of the first guys that would hop on the category. On stuff that was existing, he implemented strats, implemented some new bit bike strats on Grumble, introduced the ramp on Mario Circuit, which, probably for the worst, but he did it. That lasted a while. like 38 total records, good volume. The duration wasn't that good, I think, because he was usually one of the innovators, but not the optimizers. Didn't stick around on the categories for that long, but
That's a great way to put it.
just super, super unique.
I think his RR progress was also really interesting. Like, I don't know how much you can really count that towards his legacy, but I think that's something you have to mention when you bring up King Alex is is how close he got to making RR on Spear. I
Was
think
he
that's
or
something new
Justin the
players necessarily
closest?
don't see.
I don't
I don't know much
remember,
about
but
Justin's
I'm
progress.
gonna get into a tangent. I am just so upset that RR wasn't made on Spear,
I
and when someone
know.
finally did
Dude.
it, they got the credit of someone making it on Spear, but they made it with a vastly easier strategy. And because like it was this crazy thing at the time, you couldn't say anything bad about it. And it's like, guys, this. I mean, credit to what Arthur did, but it was not what it was built up to be from the RR. And honestly,
Yeah.
one of the things that I really hope to see is if some glitch player from today, because I mean we're just better than we've ever been before. If someone could do RR on Spear, that would be one of the most awesome things ever, just to like kind of like close that loop. Like
Yeah,
I think it's just so sad that RR never got made on Spear. I think it's definitely possible. So I think it would just be awesome to see someone do it.
When I talk to the glitch players today, they do think that if RR hadn't changed to Quacker and then, to Shooting Star and Phantom, it would have been made by now on Spear.
Okay. Yeah, and I think at some point it surely had to have been made. It would really be cool if we still had like the apex glitch times or just glitches because it was like RBC was up there, but now we've gotten better at that. KC was up there, but now we've gotten better at that. Even RWS at the beginning was kind of like that, but it would be really cool if one of those tracks was still like that, but unfortunately.
I think that's something we'll talk about in a soon to come episode.
Yeah, we might.
Yes,
we could
definitely.
we could have some episodes that go over like-minded things. But yeah, no, I think you guys laid his case out perfectly. He's just such a unique player in terms of what he's able to do. And I think also it's worth noting on Gardens, like he wasn't doing the flower hop like Brett was doing. Like his times were much better in terms of just like how he was able to get everything else to work. And it was such a brutal one because of the pace lock. And it was hard to get a run to the pace lock as fast as you possibly could without hitting it. And then you had to just go balls out to get the 149 or 158.
Yeah,
but yeah,
he
did it. And it lasted over 2 years. It's gotten I think it deserved to last that long. I'm just really sad that the state of Gardens now, like it switched to Flame Runner, but at what cost? Like the track has been dormant for so long with a weak record on it. So it'd be cool to see someone really push that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have everybody's 15s? Or do you
No,
have to go
we're waiting
Spencer?
on my 15. And honestly, there are some parallels between my 15 and Hydrations just because it's like so. I mean, it's such a unique player. But this is where I have no blow. This is the guy that I
Okay.
ultimately was
Whoa.
the highest on of all the
Interesting.
old guys. And I think he had a total duration over 1,000 days. And this was, again, at the time, this was a long time. I think what does it, there's a couple things that do it for me. He starts out, he dominates the game early on, and he falls off. But it's like his last 13 records. He's able to come back to the game after being the GOAT of the first 2 months, and I'll get to that a little bit later more. And he ends up just setting some times throughout 2009, 2010. Now, you have times in here like his MG non-shortcut time, which is just not a real record to me because it was so weak at the time from the glitch. But then you also have times like he sets a 118.3 on Mario Circuit 3 in an era where we knew so little about how to drive, especially a track like that fast. Like, it's just crazy to me he was able to achieve a time that fast in early 2010, less than 2 years after the game was out. DKM, he set some really strong times. It's just unfortunate that Alves was kind of just king there, but he still managed to get some over him. He innovated RBC. He was the first to do the mock bike shroom. Well, I guess with mock. Cole was the first to do it, the mock bike shroom with Flame Runner. But then Daisy Circuit has a decent record on, but that one's a little bit muddy because I believe Mander had a cheated run on that track. But the biggest feather in Nobuo's cap, I believe, is he was a multi-world record holder for 72 straight days during like early 2008, during the first 2 months of the game's release. So during the first 2 months, it took 72 days until until he lost having two records concurrently at the same time. And considering that era, I just think that is so impressive. And also at that time, he was also setting good records. Like, I know Matt feels this way about about these two runs, but Frost Relay's LC gets a ton of credit as being one of the earliest like strong records. But we both believe that Nobuo's Mario Circuit, where he got to a 122.5 a week after Frost Relay's run, was just a whole lot stronger. And it rightfully lasted 73 days at this point. So 14 days into the game's release, a record was standing for 72 days. And that definitely helped him always maintain the fact that he was a multi-world record holder through this era, but he was setting a crazy amount of uniques. Like, he finished with 18 unique tracks. I don't know if he achieved all of these uniques in his 2008 run, or if he added a little bit with the tracks that he got record on 2009, 2010. But I think just because of the like longevity of his dominance in early 2008 is what gets him all the way to 15, on top of the fact that, unlike a player like Yav, he did come back to the game later on and he really proved himself, or at least TTs. I think he was playing online for a lot of this, but he really proved himself on tracks like MC3, Daisy Circuit, DKM. I just think he was an exceptional player.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely, I almost had him in my top 20. It was a last minute change, right? I think the 47 world records and 18 uniques is insanely impressive. I just think 34 of those records being in the first 2 months of the game coming out, kind of hurts him, in a time that obviously, he was able to set so many records and, he was probably the best player in the world at that point, but, or at least in contention. But, I think it's just not as impressive as some other players' world record tallies, just for the time period, right? I think those 13 records he set later do a ton for his legacy and separate him from a player like Yav, for example, right? He had three concurrent records for part of 2010.
It was really
he came back and proved that he could still do it. Yeah, you're correct. One of them was MG. But yeah, I mean, I think that's really impressive and shows, some real perseverance to be able to come back like that when the game, within that year, the game changed completely, from September, October, whenever it was, 2008 to September, October 2009, the game was a completely different game. And to see him be able to come back in a different era, almost like I would say kind of a different era,
no, it's
and be able to do
era.
it, I think that's really impressive. And I think that really helps with his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
He also invented the Japanese trigger finger,
I mean,
he was the first
he
to
was
do RWS,
pretty good at glitches back then, and no glitches in the mid-2010s.
Yeah.
He had every world record in the game. And he really liked that bubble bath BGM too.
He loved that BGM.
That was a banger.
Oh man.
But yeah. Do you got anything to say, Matt?
It's our 15 to 20s.
Yeah, so I think I'm the lowest on him out of all of us, and it's in a similar vein to Hydration, where the majority of this guy's, world record production was in the first couple months of the game's release. And I'm just lower on that era because I think it's a little less competitive than you might initially believe. And that's because the game wasn't released worldwide until 2 weeks after the Japanese release.
That's fair.
So, I think it was in Europe, it was released like a day after. So you had European competition. You didn't have any American competition until 2 weeks later, and those guys had to catch up on 2 weeks of, learning and playing the game, and so you really didn't get American competition in the early days, and I think that just hurts the strength of stuff. So having 30 of his world records from that time does hurt a bit. I have incredible respect for the MC 122.5 that you mentioned. I think that's one of the most standout records in the game's history. And yeah, his comeback was very good. I mean, he just snatched Unreal's chain on MC3, set some really good times there.
He was so much better, yeah.
Was the best player in the world early on. I think overall in 2008, you make an argument he's the best of the year. I think I'd personally give it to Alvin, but
Alvin ended the year
really
strong,
good.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to note is, like, I don't know. I mean, I know Nobuo was in contact with some of the West, because I know, like, for example, Enmead recorded a couple of runs for him and talked about just like kind of knowing him. But it's interesting. I think like I've heard that he was like the best online player at times, and I think he played Daisy, and I think that's why when you go to the end of 2009, all of his real records, the non-MG ones, are all on Daisy Mock. So it's kind of a transformation from where he was before, where it was a lot of Spear, a lot of Flame Runner, and then when he ends up coming back, setting the later records, it's all Mock Bike. That doesn't really help or hurt his case. I just think that's pretty interesting. And I do wonder if he was kind of playing Bowser Bike, he would have had more world records open to him. But like he was able to get, I think at the time, the only mock record from his time period that he didn't have was Parkway, I think, unless I'm missing something. But yeah, I'm obviously higher on him.
I definitely think. Okay, finish.
Or no, sorry, I was just saying I'm definitely higher on him. And like you said, I think the American release of the game definitely does factor into his legacy and why it was just a little bit easier for him to be dominant. I just do think America dominating this game is such a recent phenomenon, and also like they were stronger in 2010, 2011, and it was really the dead period of the game where our region was really, really sorry, and that's where we had to catch up ground from in the late 2010s. But I don't know, it definitely would have changed stuff, but also again, like the dominant regions, even like after 2008, were still Japan and Europe. So
yeah.
I
think
feel
it's
like
notable.
Nobuo. Yeah, I think Nobuo is one of the like early game Mario Kart goats. I mean, even going back to like Double Dash, this guy set like
ridiculous.
month one records and stuff like that. I know Nobuo has some contact with the community, or at least with the like Mario Kart community in general. I know his voice is in the MKDS documentary on MK Dasher.
Okay.
But I don't know what other contact or like what all that looks like outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
So
I think that's all of our number 15s.
I think we're good on 15.
I have Blaze at my 14, and we already talked about him.
We talked about
Matt, who do you
Blaze.
got here?
I had Breaks, and we talked about him.
We've got Breakson. So for me, this is where I get to Casey. I have Casey at number 14.
Okay. Interesting.
I have him one spot higher at 13.
And I have him at 12. So,
okay.
That's probably our closest one.
Yeah.
No, I think at this point is really where the lists are going to start converging, because these are the guys. Like the 16 to 20 spots, and me and Riley had like the 15 spot kind of open too. So like that's where you kind of you can make your arguments for the older players. But like we'd mentioned earlier, by this point, everybody in the top 14 has just racked up insane duration and total stats that are just so hard for the older eras of the game to compete with. So yeah, for me, the worst of this bunch to me is Casey, and it's tough because he's so good, but it's just because he was kind of the last to the scene and doesn't have a best in the world argument like many of the players above him do. But he sets 23 total records across 7 uniques. He already has amassed a total duration of 6K days, which
that's ridiculous, man.
I know. This is a guy that when I joined the community, it takes him a full year to set his first record, basically, because he was constantly dubbed the best player without a world record. He, I believe, was the closest on LC for a while. That wasn't where he broke through first. It would take him another year and a half to do that, to tie it. But he starts off beating Guy in a record battle on Peach Beach. Then we get to Shy Guy Beach. He beats Sosis there. And it doesn't look like you wouldn't. I think this is forgotten. Like Sosis actually lost this battle, just like
Yeah.
Guy did. Both of those aren't reflected in MKWRS. Like Casey was constantly just a little bit ahead of the competition, and just really never lost either of those two records. He lost Shy Guy
Yeah.
to Dara, but he never lost it to Sosis back, which I think that's the only track that Sosis hasn't regained record on besides RSL. But that's just a weird combo, and that's happening right now. But on the flip side, Moo Moo is the one track where he doesn't have record on anymore, and that one he did lose to Sosis. You're not getting Sosis. You're not beating Sosis on MMM for a long time. But then he finally gets over the barrier on LC. He has Gardens, which I really wish he'd push that harder. And then the other track I forgot, MC3. He loses that one to Luke. And Matt touched on this before with Vincent, but like the top three on that track is so ridiculous. It is the strongest top three on any track in the game. And it's
By
just
far.
unfortunate that he's dealing with Luke. Like, obviously only one of those three can have world record, but without Luke, like Casey and Vincent would have a crazy battle for who's won there. So one of the best modern players of all time, he's got to be a top 5 player right now. But for me, it's just I respected the fact that the other guys before him, for the most part, had a period as best in the world. So that's why I had Casey at 14. But I think we're all in the same range, and I'd be okay with having him a spot higher.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, Matt, I'll let you go.
what to say about this guy? He's just an absolute tank. Like, once again, like top 5, probably top 3 pure driver ever. I'd say he's currently the 3rd best player in the world. He's capable on tech. He's the best spear player in the world at the moment. Might be the spear GOAT.
He's also
His
got competition
timesheet-
coming up, though.
He does have competition coming up. Marcus.
So that'll be
is
fun to see. That'll be fun to see.
hot on his heels. His record quality is just in general incredibly strong. He's battling with some of the greatest players of all time on their best tracks, and
won.
he might not win every time, but he's there, and his timesheet is way better than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, this is one thing I definitely glossed over. Yeah,
He has, this isn't the best statistic, he has 145 MKL points, which is, second currently. It's less than Logan. It's more than Luke. Him having more than Luke is a little weird. Like, Luke has a better timesheet. It's just that the MKL point system really doesn't do any favors to Luke. But yeah, I think he's pretty clearly the 3rd best player in the world right now. That's his peak level. And what can't this guy do? He's one of the most talented players ever, man.
Mm-hmm. His full time sheet is actually ridiculous. I think that's an easy part to sleep on. But he has times on every track that are like regionals and better, and then so many of the times are really strong up there on worldwide tops.
Yeah.
So you're the highest on him, Riley. What do you want to add to
Yeah,
this?
I have him very similar to another player, which is my number 13. And I originally had them switched.
If you want to get into that after this,
Yeah,
you totally
I
can.
I guess I will now because everyone's to their 14. My number 13 is Liam.
Ooh,
I think
okay.
Liam and Casey are
Okay.
very similar players.
I have him in the
based-
next. I have him in the next episode. Just by the way, I think Matt does too.
Interesting.
But
I have him at 11.
You have him at 11.
So I can talk about
So
Okay.
let's hear about Liam.
Very interesting. But yeah, so I have them as very similar players. I think they're both primarily spear players, right? Although I think, I think Casey leans a little bit more into the spear than Liam. I think the main dig against Casey is that he doesn't have a case for best player in the world at any point. And I think, Liam and Casey are very similar in terms of world records. Liam at 24, Casey at 23. 8 uniques for Liam, 7 uniques for Casey. Liam had 5 concurrent in 2018 with a world record span from 2013 to 2019. Casey's newer from 2021 to current. currently holds 5 records. I don't know if he ever held 6. I don't think so. Um, but I think I think his timesheet, speaks for itself. I don't know that much about Liam's timesheet. I was trying to pull it up, but the players page doesn't like to work very often.
Yeah, I couldn't get it to work. I
Yeah.
wanted to see if Vayu was on it, but it wouldn't load.
Yeah. But I just think Casey has slightly higher quality records. I think that LC record is so incredible. Being able to beat Cole there, finally break through, and then beat him by 40 milliseconds on that track. His Shy Guy Beach, is great. It hasn't been touched in a while. I'd love to see him come back to that. Same with Peach Beach. I think he's gotten a lot better. I think he can really improve there. Peach Gardens, he currently has. I just want to point out he currently has 4 1,000-day world records. So maybe he hasn't touched the game
It's ridiculous.
a ton
man.
in recently, in terms of records. But his MC3 there, his RSL, both just great times. I see Sosa's taking back RSL soon, but still.
Yeah.
Moving over to Liam. I went back and forth with this. I going into this episode, I had Liam over Casey. But I decided to switch at the last minute. I just think Casey had stronger records. I think Liam's Peach Beach, especially his .8, which stood for 1,700 days, is pretty incredible. He has some decent variety, hitting times like Moonview Highway, DKM No Shortcut, along with like RSL No Shortcut. I think there's so many parallels between these players. And you can nitpick all you want. I think Liam's maybe a little bit stronger in terms of quantity, but Casey's timesheet is incredible, and I just think he has slightly higher quality of records, even though he does have like 1 or 2 like Shy Guy Beach glitch records and things like that.
The one last thing I do want to say about Casey is, and honestly I think this is really underrated, he had been playing a long time before he ended up getting his first world record, but I think he started the game the latest of anyone really in this top tier of players. And it's unfair for new players to try to catch up to these guys because they just have, it's kind of the same thing that Matt mentioned with Nobuo. It's like he has a 2-week head start at the beginning of the game. Makes a huge difference. It's like these guys have like a 10 to 12 years head start on you in some cases, or even just like 4 or 5. And it's like he's still able to kind of break into that tier, even if he can't break into the Luke Logan tier. He's still like an equal to everybody below at worst. So, no, I think that part is also, I don't think people give that enough credit when they realize these newer players competing, especially at like a 5 concurrent world record caliber with everybody else. Like that's just incredibly impressive to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you have to say about Liam?
So, I mean, it's a lot of what Riley already said. I do want to highlight his Peach Beach and Shy Guy Beach records on the Spear from 2013 and 2015 and 2017. Those were really good for the time. And another fun fact about Liam, it's the fun fact we all love. I think he's the only player in the game's history to have the all 4 vehicle versatility between the Magic Cruiser, Mach Bike, Flame Runner, and Spear on the no glitch side. Liam's timesheet actually is really, really good, especially for the time that he was setting most of the times. I think that can be a little underrated. He peaked at 6 concurrent world records, which is like a really high total. That's maybe, that might even be like the 5th highest total ever. I'm not sure.
You said he peaked at 6?
Yeah, he had 6.
Oh, really? I thought he only had 5.
No, he had 6.
Okay.
Sometime in 2018, I believe. And I mean, yeah, he was arguably the best player in the world. It really depends on how you want to view Fox and Luke at the time, but Fox was inactive. Luke was playing CTs, so we'll give it to Liam. He was the best player in the world in like 2017 and the earlier parts of 2018. And yeah, he just has a really good resume all around. Good world records, good longevity, very good peak. There's nothing else to say.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that stat, though. There are other players who have held all 4 of those vehicles, but nobody's done it, to my knowledge, no glitch like him. I think the gap that I have between you two is I really value what he did relative to era, and I just think he ultimately is one of the most underrated players of the game's history. But yeah, I'll get into him next episode.
Okay. Do we have everybody's 14?
Yes,
Yes.
we were on to 13. It's your 13 if you haven't
I
done
had
it
Casey
already.
there.
You have Casey, so yeah.
Okay.
At 13, it looks like I'm just lagging behind you guys a couple spots. Although this guy might be in the top 10 for some. I have Totem at 13.
Okay.
I've got him in my top 10.
I have him in my top 10 as well.
Okay. So I think this placement is ultimately down to just, I guess I don't view the PP champion part of it as highly as you guys do. I think obviously the standout with him is his legacy on RWS. I think what's often forgotten is he really pushed the track with a lot of people earlier in 2009. And he had a lot of history on the track before he really took over in 2011 and obviously set that tank of a record, which aged very, very well. But like, it's just, I like some of what the skill sets and the legacies of what some of these other guys give more. He had over 6K duration, a little bit less for just no shortcut, 33 total records, and most of them are pretty respectively, and he held 5 concurrently. And then I do think he was definitely best in the world late 2012 into maybe 2013, which I do believe was a pretty competitive era, despite a lot of the top players earlier quitting. But I don't know. He was very diverse on the amount of tracks he played, obviously, to become the champion. But I just prefer the longevity of dominance with some of the other guys who I have above him. So I think that is ultimately the reason why Totem falls at 13. But ultimately, I don't really want to talk about him too much because I'm not going to do it justice compared to you guys who are higher on him than me. So we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the Totem discussion next episode, probably. Or not probably, for sure. But yeah. Do you guys have anything you want to mention real quick? Or
all I'll just say is that I can completely understand why you have him where he is.
Yeah.
I have him higher. I think this whole range of players is very open to be ranked, in
this is
different
pretty
ways
compact,
depending on what you value. And I think all these players have similar but also very different resumes that are all so impressive in their own right and can be difficult to sort of rank in that way.
Fox just absolutely smacked him around, and I don't like his mentality, how he went out of the game.
Let's get the slander in.
It is a little bit of a different era, and I'm not I wasn't around for the context, so I understand that cheating was a huge problem at the time, and many of the greats before were really just the reason why they quit. Elvin and stuff was really fed up with stuff, and he certainly wasn't the only one. So I do understand why he might have thought that. It's just he really got his chain snatched by Fox, and it was not pretty, and he just kind of flamed out. Although, obviously, we got to give him his flowers. He is the GOAT at quitting MKW. Nobody's done it like him before, and nobody's done it like him since. We talk about all these players making their heroic comebacks and stuff. He has stuck to what he said. And I don't know. There are some people who should probably take a page from his book on this one, because it's just a little bit pathetic every time they say, I'm done with this game, and they got a new disc 2 weeks later. It's like, guys, come on.
You want to name any names, Spencer?
Nah, we don't have to name any names
I want
here.
Some heat. I want some heat.
This is more of an online problem, too, but I just thought I'd get that off. But yeah.
Yeah.
He's obviously one of the greats.
All I'll say about Totem is that when I was making this list, I was not expecting him to end up in my top 10. And then when I looked at what he had done and all of his accomplishments, I ended up having to put him there.
He was originally not in both of our top 10s when we did the preliminary list like a month ago. Before we had any ideas of this pod, me and Matt we spent like 3 or 4 hours on a top 10 list like this. And we had like a pretty consensus top 8, top 9. It was like the 10 spot that was really flexible for us. And I think the guys in the, for me 14, but for others 15 to 10 range are just really, really, or 50, that range is just really, really flexible. That being said, I think we both made changes to our top 10 since then. So it'll be interesting to see or for the other one of us to see what we have. So at 12, Riley's
do I finally
Casey.
get to announce someone?
I have Casey, yeah.
Yes.
This is my first announcement in since Enmead at 18.
Wait, really? That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, you got 12. Let's hear it.
At number 12, I have Guy.
I knew
Mr.
it.
Caleb House.
I have Mr. Caleb House at number 12 too.
Oh wow,
Dude.
I thought you'd be higher.
Yeah, I don't have
Nope.
I don't have Guy on my list.
I had.
You don't have Guy on your list?
What?
Nope.
What? Are you insane?
Nope. I'm not insane.
Bro, I thought he'd be like in your top 10 or something.
Dude.
Off the
Matt,
list?
You were coming to this pod being like, I'm the Caleb hater. Now you got to defend his ass.
This is crazy.
Wow.
Dude, I am a Caleb hater. Wow.
Wait. This is insane.
I want to hear your guys' reasoning, and then I'll get into mine.
He was definitely in Nate's top 20 or top 10, I think. He wasn't in the top 20, so that's crazy to me to have him.
He's
off
definitely
this
in my
list.
21 to 25.
That's the shock of the list so far.
It is. I can't get behind that take. He is at minimum a top 15 player.
Okay. So, Mr. Caleb House, RAF guy. 32 total records, 17 no glitch, 15 glitch. This guy has almost 9,000 day duration. And, I mean, this guy was, maybe the spear goat for a while. I think Casey's got the title at this point, but he's best known for Mario Circuit, both on the glitch side and the no glitch side. I mean, his original sub, the 912, is one of the legendary records of the game. His current time, it's been around for almost 2,000 days, and I can't believe is still the world record of a 357 with the 3 for 3 King Alex. I hate this run, but I have to give it its respect because nobody's beaten
it since day one. You and Aaron.
I mean, his 53.592 with the old, just horrible no stop glitch.
That is an iconic run.
That is an iconic run.
Such an iconic run. He was so far ahead of everybody. It was a dead period, especially for glitches, but that was a crazy run.
Yeah, I mean, he had his 815 on Peach Beach, and Guy wasn't doing the whole thinking thing back then. He was still going outside the duck. I don't know why he was doing that, but nobody was thinking at all, so we had to have Cole come teach us a lesson. And then lastly, I just want to mention his Peach Beach sub, still world record over 1,400 days later. So some of the other notable accomplishments, it really all has to do with, this guy is one of the best track specialists ever, specifically on Mario Circuit. Longest lasting no glitch record in the game. Longest lasting reign now. I can't believe those are both true, but once again, nobody's beaten this current run.
But the other crazy thing is nobody beat him at any point in the rain. That thing was
Casey,
on thin
Casey
ice.
was less than 24 hours away from beating him. Because Guy improved to a 0.8, and Casey improved to a 0.8 a day later, but it was a slower 0.8. It was just crazy.
It's ridiculous.
But yeah, this guy has incredible longevity. He was one of the better, he might have been one of the best glitch players in the game back in the mid 2010s. Peaked at 3 world records at various points, and I'm not really sure exactly how high his overall peak was relative to the era, but like I said, he was the spear goat for a while. So, yeah, a lot of respect for Guy. Even though I thought I'd be the Guy hater coming into this.
Yeah, I think you've missed one huge point for Guy, and honestly, Riley clearly has not considered this, which truly hurts my heart. He was a DKJP B button only pioneer, and I don't think that can be overstated.
Shit.
I'd forgotten about that.
He was the first on that category, and he kept up for a while. Truly great work there from Caleb. But yeah, I think obviously a lot of his duration, a lot of his reign would be consensus considered a little bit lucky. But I think for me, again, I really value track specialists, like having Deem at 11, huge deal for me. And he dominated his tracks for a really long time. And it was just interesting because both of them happened to have two categories that he was dominant at both. But the other thing about glitches, he was the first person to make RSL. So that was something that he actually did back when you had to land in the little magenta box, when it was a lot harder than it became later on, even when it was like still 1 for 3s. So
Don't forget this guy was king of the hopless bounce.
He was king of the hopless bounce. He's some great content.
He did.
Really some household names in terms of videos all time. Not really factoring into this list, but worth mentioning. Obviously, like you said, no period is best in the world. He did peak at 4 world records currently, though.
Oh, did he get up to 4? Wow.
Yeah, he did get up to 4. But yeah, it's just like his duration numbers are just so high. And it's like he's in the same realm as Breaks, and he's actually a little bit less. I don't know. I value his duration a little bit higher, but
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I just think having him outside of the top 15, let alone the top 20, is insane for what he's done.
Something I forgot to mention was that, like, even after he lost RPB, like, he's still super close to that record. I think he still has BCAS lap 1, might have some of the other BCASs, I'm not sure, but he's only like 20 milliseconds away. He could definitely beat it if he ever came back, but unfortunately he went the totem route, and when he stopped playing.
No, and he did it for all the right reasons, not all the wrong reasons. Not to be rage quit over Fox being better than him to play Rocket League. Like, no, this dude just decided he wanted to have a life, so gonna give him props for that. Nah, he seems hella
overrated.
It's overrated. But yeah, no, I think if he'd been playing the 3 previous years, or even if he didn't have Peach Beach right now, he certainly would have improved his time and pushed Casey there. I know you're way higher on him as a player on Peach Beach than you are him on MC, even though he doesn't have the record there. So yeah, like a lot of his duration stuff is a little bit lucky. The fact that nobody interrupted his reign despite multiple times it was under threat. But also, I think it is really a testament. I think you do overhate the Mario Circuit time just a little bit too much. There's a reason why it has lasted that long. It might not be the fastest run for 3.
Good.
But it still is 3 for 3 King Alex, and people have gotten other runs with the ramps required to beat it, and nobody's finished the runs. So, yeah, I just think he has an amazing legacy on this game, perhaps above the level of skill that he had just because he was a pure spear player. But, no, I think 12 is very much about right. And I'll let you get into why you think he shouldn't be on the list.
Give us the real hater case. Right. Educate me.
Oh my gosh.
Time to absolutely tarnish his name.
My ass. Dude.
Right, time to tarnish this guy's name. All right, so let's start with MC. Okay, this guy, I'll give him his flowers for his 592, his 592, getting that, getting the no stop tree. Probably definitely the hardest version of that glitch, right? But you know, just pretty much let the category go after the strat changes happened, right? Moving on to Peach Beach, you know, Peach Beach glitch I don't value very highly. You know, he's a 1,400 day record right now that I just think no one's played or has tried to beat. Like, yeah, the driving's decent, you know, it's 2 for 3 run, that's hard. But, like, I mean, come on, guys. Like, I'm not giving that much credit to that run, even for how long it lasted, right?
That's fair.
Sherbert Land
That's fair, the
records.
hater coming
I'm
out.
not giving too much flowers to that, despite him
yup.
being the first.
Didn't last for very
And
long,
then
though.
what?
I don't think it didn't last for very long. I guess his last one did. I do think
Yeah.
his last
He was
one
in the
was
mix.
a decent record, though. Because
Yeah,
he was just
yeah.
driving. Because he was one of the best spear players for sure at that time, if not the spear goat. Like a lot of these glitch records, I think you're underrating the fact that they're not hard. They weren't hard to beat because of the glitch. It's just doing the glitch and then having his level of driving made the barrier of entry really hard, and that's why nobody beat his one
That's
for
fair.
free before new strats came out there, or the Magi did. And that's why his Peach Beach has lasted so long. But I do agree, those are less respect, more dead categories. But I think there is a
Yeah.
reason for that. And I think his skill sweat is like perfectly equipped for those categories.
I think also you mentioned this. This is like sort of the glitch dead era.
Yeah.
This sort of 16, 17 era. But yeah, and then that leaves us with two main categories, and that's Peach Beach No Shortcut and Mario Circuit No Shortcut. I'll give him his flowers on Peach Beach No Shortcut. Did a great job there lowering that record. To and going even beyond it. Once he lost it. I think there's a lot of that what he did on that track is really impressive. And I think Mario Circuit No Shortcut as well. Really being the one to sort of take advantage of that ramp better than anyone else. And even today still holding the record, even if I agree that it should have been beaten by now. But I think outside of the glitch records, right, he has two no shortcut records, or like two tracks.
Categories.
Yeah, two
Yeah.
tracks, yeah.
And I think that's where he's weak. I think there's just a lack of variety. He only has 3 unique tracks technically, now 5 unique categories, right? But I really only put a ton of value on 2 of those tracks, and I don't think that's as impressive as some other players. Like I put Demon at 20, I put Connor at 17. I think both those players have had much better. I think Demon only did it on 1 track, but he did it better, a lot better, and I think his records have more respect. And I think Connor being able to do it on multiple different tracks. But I think in terms of the 2008 players, I think it just depends on how you value it. I think 32 records is impressive, and I think his longevity is pretty impressive too. But I don't think all of that is necessarily deserved, despite how good of a player he is.
I mean, even if you
Okay.
think his record should have been beaten faster, he still has like 10 years of longevity and dominance on his categories. So I guess the first couple years are purely as a glitch player, and a lot lower respect. But I think once you really get to 2016, the way he's been able to rack up like duration through the dominance on the tracks, I don't know. I think like he definitely is a more polarizing player, and I think if you want to put like, it's a lot easier to put a guy like Guy lower than the early era guys, like the 08 to 13 guys, than it is to put somebody like Totem, for example. So I do understand like through that viewpoint why you have him off the list. It's just like off the list is wild, and I think that he's better than a lot of the people at the tail end of your list. So
He couldn't even get an honorable mention.
yeah, okay, I think you didn't honorable mention him because you thought he'd be on our list, and he didn't create the list for that.
I also
but-
I did not prepare any honorable mentions, to be honest.
No, you're
The
good,
only
you're
reason
good.
I did was
Fair,
that I switched
fair.
off Nobuo and Demon. That
I
was
think-
the only reason I mentioned Nobuo.
I think me and Matt had a lot of them
Yeah.
like covered. I mean, there
Yeah.
are guys that you guys might have had at like 23 and 25 that could have been different than us, but I don't really think there's too much different.
Could
And
you
then-
imagine the scenes if I mentioned Guy as an honorable mention?
Bro,
Oh,
you would have gotten
brother.
it. We would
kicked
be
him
in the
off.
car right. We would be in the car right now. we wouldn't be that close, but we'd be making our way.
I mean, this pod has gone for a long time, so there's a
I know.
chance.
Well,
We're at almost 3 hours, guys.
Thankfully, guys, we already have revealed all of our 11s.
Wait, does
I
Hadoushin
think-
have his 11 done?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
well,
chaos.
hold up, sec.
Oh, is it
I
not
haven't
Chaos?
named out my number 11.
No, Chaos was in his top
Chaos
10.
is in my
Oh,
top
Chaos
10.
in your top 10. Fuck. Okay.
We have one
Who's your
more.
number
My
11?
number 11 has not been named yet. And I think you guys have him near the top, or near like the bottom of your top 10. I have Justin.
Justin?
Yeah,
Okay, I
he's my
have
top 10.
Justin at 10. Do you just want to save Justin for next episode?
Yeah, I think we saved Justin.
Okay, because I
okay.
do
Yeah.
think, we both have him at 10. If Nate's there for next episode, Nate'll be a decent bit higher on Justin, I assume. But I do think he is really just in that range. So I think we can get to Justin next episode. Everybody, do you want to really quickly go through your 20 to 11 in that order?
Yeah.
I can start. I have Demon at 20, Bubbles at 19, Brendan at 18, Connor at 17, Vayu at 16, King Alex at 15, Blaze at 14, Liam at 13, Casey at 12, and Justin at 11.
I had Axel at 20. At number 19, I had Vincent Barone. At number 18, Nicholas Mead. At number 17, Chaos. At number 16, Blaze. At number 15, Demon. At number 14, Breakson. At number 13, Casey. At number 12, Guy. And at number 11, Liam.
At number 20, I have Axel, 19 Chaos, 18 BW Brendan, 17 Blaze, 16 Breakson, 15 The Goat, Mr. Japanese Trigger Finger No Blow, 14 Casey, 13 Totem, 12 Mr. Caleb House, and 11 the MT Coat Demon. So
Nice.
I think that'll wrap up for us. Probably don't want to hear us talk anymore.
You don't want to
If you
hear
even
us
made
yap?
it to the end. Yeah, if
What
you've
if
made
I
it to the end,
reveal that
thank
I,
you. We are very hopeful that this will become a decent series, this pod, for you guys to listen to. There's just like a lack of content on stuff like this, and we thought doing a pod would be the best way to fill the void.
Dude, everybody's
Just
too
to do like these combos
scared.
about these players. Yeah, it's
Everybody's
like
too
we're
scared
not
to
gonna pull
make it.
punches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
people are just lazy. So I don't know. I hope this is successful. I hope you guys like this. And it's like these are conversations we would be having to some extent on our own. So it's like, why don't we just get something out of it? Like, we love to talk about this stuff. So, and we think there are a lot of topics to get into. We wanted to start with a heavy hitter like this to get people hooked. Hopefully we get people thinking about the history of the game here. And yeah, we hope you agree with some of our takes. And,
Yeah.
And we all think we're right about our own list, which is how it should be and stuff. So,
Guys,
Fine. I think,
you go, Hydration.
yeah, I mean, I think, like a podcast like this is the kind of thing I would have loved to listen to, like while I was TTing or like working or something like that. Like I think there's definitely a void here, and obviously it's going to be rough around the edges the first few goes around, but we're hoping to keep this pretty
For sure.
regular, for the most part, as much as we can. And we have some people, who can
We have
fill in and
reserves.
stuff like that. Yeah, we have a full bench ready.
yeah.
To hop in when we can't, right? But no, we're extremely excited about this, and it's only going to get better as it goes, as we sort of find our voice and our place. But yeah, if you made it this far, we really appreciate you guys, taking the time to listen in and hear our
So
great or terrible takes.
Yeah, if you made it this far, comment where you think Caleb should be ranked all time. And only correct answers inside of the top 20. I think we need to
Top
show
25.
Riley that he
top
is
15.
that he has missed the mark on this one. But yeah, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. We're hoping to make this, we said like a regular series. It would be awesome if we could get 3 episodes out a month or something, somewhere around there. But yeah,
I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah.
okay.
I believe my
Before we go-
contract says 1 every 3 weeks.
So you're
Oh,
gonna
brother.
be in the same place Nate is right now. We'll get some replacements.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm editing the podcast. This comes out at my pace.
Fuck, you got
Yeah.
leverage.
About that hydration.
But yeah, no, thank you for doing that and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
So I accidentally stopped recording like 10 minutes ago and had to restart. So I hope that
No
saves
worries, no worries.
somewhere.
No, worst
Okay.
comes to
All right,
worst, I
let's
use
just
the
let's just end.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for
Yeah, let's
watching.
end.
We'll see you later. And yeah, this is episode 1. See, come back next week for the top 10 players, the big hitters. But yeah.
Next
Yeah.
week. All right, guys, I'm doing the intro now.
No.
3, 2, 1, clap. Hello,
Welcome,
everyone.
everybody.
Welcome
Oh,
to
no, I got
episode
it.
1 of the Inside Drift.